The Art of Maybe. Transform your life with probabilistic thinking. Copyright 2025 Brian Eris. All rights reserved. No part of this publication may be reproduced, distributed, or transmitted in any form or by any means, including photocopying, recording, or other electronic or mechanical methods, without the prior written permission of the copyright holder, except in the case of brief quotations embodied in critical reviews and certain other non-commercial uses permitted by copyright law. Preface. In a world that craves certainty, we often find ourselves chasing the illusion of absolute answers. We make plans, set goals, and stake our hopes on outcomes we believe we can predict. Yet life, in its infinite complexity, rarely bends to such rigid expectations. The truth is, we live in a realm of probabilities, where outcomes are not guaranteed but merely likely, and where uncertainty is not a flaw but a fundamental feature of existence. This book, The Art of Maybe, is an invitation to embrace that uncertainty, not as a source of fear, but as a wellspring of possibility. The idea for this book was born from a quiet realization. The moments when I felt most lost were often when I clung too tightly to black and white thinking. Like many, I used to see decisions as forks in the road, success or failure, right or wrong. But life taught me that such binary views obscure the richness of what's possible. Through years of studying decision-making, observing human behavior, and reflecting on my own missteps, I came to see probabilistic thinking as a kind of mental liberation. It's a way to navigate the world with clarity, humility, and resilience, accepting that while we cannot control every outcome, we can learn to move wisely through the fog of uncertainty. The Art of Maybe is not about mathematics or cold calculations. It's about cultivating a mindset that sees life as a spectrum of likelihoods, where every choice is a bet on a future we can only partially foresee. From relationships to career moves, from health choices to global challenges, this book offers practical tools and real-world examples to help you think probabilistically. You'll meet people who transformed their lives by letting go of rigid expectations, and you'll discover exercises to sharpen your ability to weigh possibilities with confidence and grace. This is not a guide to predicting the future with precision. Such a thing is impossible. Instead, it's a call to approach life with curiosity and adaptability, to see uncertainty not as a threat but as a canvas for growth. My hope is that these pages will inspire you to let go of the need for certainty and embrace the art of maybe, finding freedom in the probabilities that shape our lives. Chapter 1: Why Probabilistic Thinking Matters. In a world that hungers for solid ground, we often seek the unwavering certainty of absolute answers. We craft grand designs, fix our sights on distant goals, and anchor our hopes to outcomes we believe are guaranteed. Yet, the currents of life rarely flow in predictable, straight lines. The truth that whispers to us from every corner of existence is that we inhabit a realm of likelihoods, where the future is not promised but merely probable, and where uncertainty is not a flaw in the grand design, but its very essence. This book, The Art of Maybe, is an invitation to embrace this profound truth, not as a source of fear that paralyzes the will, but as a wellspring of infinite possibility. The very idea for this journey into probabilistic thinking was forged in the quiet fire of personal revelation. I, like many, once saw decisions as stark, unyielding forks in the road, success or failure, right or wrong, a clear triumph or an utter defeat. This binary lens, sharp as it may seem, obscured the rich tapestry of what truly could be. Through years spent observing human endeavor, studying the subtle dance of decision, and reflecting on my own missteps and triumphs, a profound understanding began to emerge. Probabilistic thinking is not merely a strategy, it is a profound mental liberation. It is the compass that guides us through the fog of the unknown, allowing us to move with clarity, humility, and an unshakable resilience, knowing full well that while we cannot command every outcome, we can certainly learn to navigate the ever-shifting currents with profound wisdom. This is not a treatise on cold mathematics or obscure statistical formulae. It is, instead, a profound cultivation of a mindset, a way of seeing life not as a series of definitive points, but as a vast spectrum of likelihoods, where every choice, every action, is a considered wager on a future we can only ever partially discern. From the intricate weave of relationships to the bold leaps in career, from the delicate choices concerning health to the monumental challenges facing our world, this book offers practical tools and tangible, real-world examples to help you infuse your very being with the principles of probabilistic thought. You will discover how individuals, by shedding the rigid shackles of absolute expectations, transform their lives, and you will find exercises designed to sharpen your innate ability to weigh possibilities with both confidence and grace. This is not, let it be clear, a manual for perfect foresight, for such a thing is beyond the grasp of any mortal. Rather, it is a resounding call to approach life with an insatiable curiosity and an unwavering adaptability, to see uncertainty not as a menacing shadow, but as an expansive canvas upon which your future can be painted. My deepest hope is that these pages will ignite within you a profound letting go of the desperate need for certainty, allowing you to embrace the exquisite art of maybe, and in doing so, discover a boundless freedom in the very probabilities that shape our lives. What is probabilistic thinking? At its most fundamental, probabilistic thinking is the noble art of reasoning based upon likelihoods, rather than clinging to absolutes. It is the cultivated habit of the mind that instinctively asks, how likely is this scenario to unfold? Instead of the more primitive, will this definitively happen? It is about the subtle, yet powerful, act of assigning probabilities to potential outcomes, whether it be a 70% chance that the heavens will open this afternoon or a 40% estimation that a nascent business venture will achieve its stride. These estimates, rough as they might initially appear, become the unerring guides for your actions. In stark contrast to deterministic thinking, which presumes a singular, unalterable path, probabilistic thinking gracefully acknowledges that myriad scenarios are not only possible but probable, each bearing its own unique degree of likelihood. This approach demands no mastery of complex mathematical equations or statistical wizardry, though such tools can certainly lend their aid. No, this is fundamentally a mindset, a profound way of perceiving the world that is rooted in the very fabric of reality. Life, in its infinite wisdom, offers no guarantees, but it bountifully provides patterns, discernible trends, and a wealth of data that we, as conscious beings, can harness to make incredibly informed estimations. Probabilistic thinking is the art of seizing upon these subtle clues, weaving them into decisions that are inherently more robust, wonderfully flexible, and perfectly attuned to the unpredictable, ever-shifting nature of the world around us. Consider a seemingly simple endeavor, planning a leisurely hike for the upcoming weekend. The deterministic thinker, upon consulting the weather forecast, notes the cheerful word sunny, and with unshakable conviction packs only the lightest of attire, assuming a day of unblemished perfection. The probabilistic thinker, however, observes the forecast's 80% chance of sun, and with a knowing nod to the caprice of nature, tucks a lightweight rain jacket into their pack. They are not paralyzed by the distant prospect of a shower. Rather, they are judiciously prepared for it. This subtle yet profound shift in cognitive approach, this graceful acknowledgement of uncertainty and the foresight to plan for a multiplicity of outcomes, can, in the grand theater of life, make all the decisive difference. Why probabilistic thinking is critical. Life is, by its very nature, an intricate dance of uncertainty. To pretend otherwise is to set ourselves on a collision course with inevitable disappointment, to sow the seeds of poor decisions, and to invite a deluge of unnecessary stress. Absolute predictions, whether whispered with conviction, "I will definitely secure that coveted promotion," or declared with unwavering resolve, this investment will never falter, invariably crumble under the relentless scrutiny of reality. The world, in its sprawling complexity, is simply too vast, too interwoven with countless variables, for us to predict outcomes with the rigid certainty we often crave. Probabilistic thinking, then, emerges as our indispensable guide, a beacon allowing us to navigate this profound complexity without succumbing to paralyzing overwhelm. Consider the remarkable life of Edith Garrod, a lesser-known but pivotal figure in the early 20th century British suffragette movement. While many of her contemporaries campaigned through conventional political channels, Garrod, a martial arts instructor, approached the fight for women's voting rights with a profoundly probabilistic and pragmatic mindset. She understood that conventional petitions and peaceful demonstrations carried a low probability of immediate, radical success against a deeply entrenched patriarchal system. Instead, she calculated that equipping suffragettes with the skills of jiu-jitsu, allowing them to defend themselves against police brutality and public aggression, would increase the likelihood of their protests being sustained and effective, even if it carried the risk of controversy. The suffragettes, or jiu-jitsu-fragettes she trained, were not operating on the certainty of victory, but on the calculated probability that empowering themselves physically would shift the odds in their favor, allowing them to adapt to violent opposition. Her probabilistic assessment of the political landscape and her unconventional solution significantly contributed to the movement's resilience and eventual triumph, not in a single, certain moment, but through a series of tactical shifts. This is why probabilistic thinking is not merely beneficial, it is absolutely critical. It equips us with the mental wherewithal to craft decisions that are firmly rooted in the undeniable bedrock of reality, rather than the shifting sands of wishful thinking. It provides the intellectual armor against the insidious trap of overconfidence, which often seduces us into believing we possess an infallible knowledge of what will inevitably transpire. Conversely, it frees us from the paralyzing grip of fear, that insidious force that often keeps us from bold action simply because we cannot gaze upon a future wholly devoid of uncertainty. By wholeheartedly embracing the spectrum of likelihoods, we empower ourselves to make choices that are inherently more resilient, wonderfully adaptable, and ultimately, profoundly effective. Probabilistic thinking in action. To truly grasp the subtle power of probabilistic thinking in its practical application, let us delve into a few everyday scenarios where its influence can dramatically reshape outcomes. Weather forecasts. We all engage in this ritual. Before stepping out for the day, we instinctively consult a weather application. The forecast might declare, for instance, a 60% chance of rain this afternoon. The deterministic mind, in its quest for singular clarity, might interpret this as an unequivocal "it's probably going to rain," and without further thought, either cancel all outdoor plans or, conversely, dismiss the warning entirely, assuming it will remain dry. The probabilistic thinker, however, perceives the 60% as a nuanced signal, an invitation to prepare judiciously for a multiplicity of outcomes. They might, with practiced foresight, carry a compact umbrella, or elect for an itinerary that gracefully allows for both indoor and outdoor activities, or perhaps even have a contingency plan for a sudden change of locale. They are not blindly wagering on either rain or sun. They are thoughtfully prepared for the embrace of either. This sagacious approach extends far beyond the realm of meteorology. It is about recognizing that all forecasts, whether they pertain to the climate or the complexities of life itself, are inherently estimates born from incomplete data. By nurturing a probabilistic mindset, we gain the invaluable ability to act with reasoned prudence, navigating life's unexpected showers, both literal and metaphorical, without being thrown off course. Medical diagnoses. Within the solemn halls of medicine, probabilistic thinking stands as an inviolable cornerstone of informed decision-making. Physicians rarely operate within the comforting confines of absolute certainties. Rather, Their profound wisdom is built upon the art of relying on probabilities to guide both diagnosis and treatment. Consider, for example, a patient presenting with the unsettling symptom of chest pain. A seasoned physician, drawing upon years of accumulated knowledge and the latest research, might estimate a 20% probability of a serious cardiac condition, a 50% chance of acid reflux, and a 30% likelihood of a musculoskeletal issue. These estimations are born from a careful synthesis of the patient's reported symptoms, their intricate medical history, and the preliminary results of diagnostic tests. Instead of making a premature leap to a singular, definitive conclusion, the probabilistic physician judiciously orders a series of targeted tests designed to refine these probabilities, skillfully balancing the grave risks of overlooking a severe condition against the financial and emotional costs of initiating unnecessary, invasive procedures. Patients, too, can draw immense strength from adopting this mindset. Reflect upon the inspiring journey of Fannie Lou Hamer, a pivotal figure in the American civil rights movement. In the 1960s, Hamer faced numerous health challenges, often in a healthcare system riddled with racial bias. Rather than passively accepting the pronouncements of a system that often denied her full agency, she, through her fierce advocacy and self-education, understood that medical outcomes were not fixed certainties, but probabilities influenced by care, diet, and perseverance. She approached her own health and the health disparities in her community with a probabilistic lens, understanding the likelihood of certain ailments in impoverished communities, and advocating for interventions that, while not guaranteed, increased the probability of better health outcomes for her people. Her life, though marked by immense suffering, was a testament to navigating medical and societal uncertainties with a proactive, probabilistic spirit. Financial planning. The labyrinthine world of finance is yet another arena where the illumination of probabilistic thinking shines with remarkable clarity. Every investment, every meticulously crafted budget, every audacious plan for the golden years of retirement, each is an intricate act of weighing risks against potential rewards amidst the ever-present shroud of uncertainty. Consider the pioneering work of Ella Batt, the visionary founder of the Self-Employed Women's Association, SEWA, in India in 1972. When Batt began organizing and lending to poor, self-employed women who were routinely dismissed by traditional banks, she had no certain guarantee that her microfinance model would succeed. Conventional financial institutions summarily rejected her radical ideas, arguing with ironclad certainty that impoverished borrowers represented an insurmountable risk. However, Batt, with an intuitive grasp of probabilities, estimated that a significant percentage of these marginalized women, if empowered with even the smallest capital, would repay their loans. Her groundbreaking experiments with microloans, which prioritized trust and community support, validated her probabilistic foresight, transforming the lives of millions and laying the groundwork for a global movement. By thinking in terms of likelihoods, Batt took calculated risks that others, blinded by conventional certainties, dared not contemplate. In your own financial landscape, probabilistic thinking can serve as your unwavering compass, guiding choices that range from diversifying your investment portfolio to intelligently spread risk, to meticulously saving for life's inevitable, unexpected expenses. Instead of recklessly placing all your resources on the singular outcome of a stock or naively assuming your current employment is an immutable fortress, you are empowered to plan for a vast panorama of potential outcomes. This strategic foresight ensures that your financial future, rather than being a fragile edifice, becomes a resilient and adaptive stronghold, capable of weathering the inevitable storms of economic uncertainty. The benefits of probabilistic thinking. Embracing a probabilistic mindset is not merely an intellectual exercise. It is a profound transformation that bestows three invaluable benefits upon your life: the cultivation of markedly better decision-making, a significant reduction in the gnawing stress born from uncertainty, and the forging of a robust, unyielding resilience. Better decision-making. When you consciously choose to think in probabilities, you are compelled by the very nature of this approach to consider a multitude of outcomes, each with its unique likelihood. This rigorous intellectual discipline invariably leads to decisions that are not merely informed, but deeply intelligent. Instead of blindly selecting a singular path and hopping against hope for the best, you are empowered to meticulously evaluate the odds, carefully weigh the potential consequences, and, with calm assurance, choose the option that offers the most harmonious balance of risk and reward. This approach, while it does not magically eliminate every misstep, significantly diminishes the probability of catastrophic errors born from the dangerous illusions of overconfidence or willful denial. Reflect upon the actions of Captain Charles V. Drysdale, a lesser-known but brilliant figure in naval history, who in the early 20th century championed the adoption of statistical methods for naval gunnery and anti-submarine warfare. During World War I, rather than relying on the deterministic point-and-shoot approach, Drysdale advocated for a probabilistic method. He understood that hitting a moving target, especially a submarine, was not a certainty, but a complex calculation involving the likelihood of evasion, the accuracy of the torpedo, and the variables of the sea. By collecting data, estimating probabilities of success for different firing solutions, and iteratively refining these calculations, he significantly increased the effectiveness of the Royal Navy's attacks. His probabilistic mindset, rather than hopping for a lucky shot, transformed naval combat into a more calculated and effective endeavor, saving lives and turning the tide of crucial engagements. This historical example reveals how a probabilistic lens, even in high-stakes environments, guides choices that are not merely about aiming, but about intelligently maximizing the likelihood of desired outcomes. Reduce stress from uncertainty. Uncertainty, in its rawest form, is an undeniable wellspring of anxiety. When our inherent human craving for certainty remains unfulfilled, we often find ourselves paralyzed, overwhelmed, lost in a debilitating fog of doubt. Probabilistic thinking, however, elegantly reverses this dynamic. By consciously embracing uncertainty not as an enemy, but as an intrinsic, natural component of existence, you liberate yourself to focus your precious energy on what is likely, rather than chasing the elusive phantom of what is guaranteed. This profound shift alleviates the crushing emotional burden of not knowing, thereby empowering you to act with a renewed sense of confidence, even when the final outcome remains veiled in ambiguity. Consider a modern, relatable scenario: the launch of a new entrepreneurial venture. The aspiring founder often grapples with sleepless nights, plagued by the relentless worry of whether their nascent enterprise will soar or plummet. The probabilistic thinker, however, approaches this daunting question by meticulously deconstructing it into its constituent likelihoods. What is the estimated chance that the market will respond favorably to this novel offering? What is the likelihood of successfully securing the necessary seed funding? By assigning even rough probabilities to these critical variables, and, crucially, by meticulously planning for a spectrum of plausible scenarios, they are able to move forward with purpose, unburdened by the paralyzing grip of an unattainable demand for absolute certainty. This strategic approach transforms overwhelming anxiety into actionable foresight. Greater resilience. Life, in its unpredictable grandeur, is an unending cascade of setbacks and unforeseen challenges. Probabilistic thinking, with its inherent wisdom, constructs a formidable resilience within us by fundamentally reframing what we perceive as failures. In this enlightened mindset, a setback is not a final, damning verdict, but merely a valuable data point, an invaluable piece of information in an ongoing, grand experiment. When you anticipate a broad spectrum of possible outcomes, you are far less likely to be blindsided and devastated by results that deviate from your initial expectations. Instead, You are uniquely positioned to glean profound lessons from them, to judiciously adjust your approach, and to courageously endeavor once more. Take, for a compelling example, the tireless dedication of Mary McLeod Bethune, an educator and civil rights activist who founded a school for African American girls in Florida in 1904. Bethune faced immense, systemic resistance, racial prejudice, severe financial constraints, and a society that actively devalued black education. Many times her fundraising efforts failed, political support wavered, and resources dwindled. However, Bethune did not interpret these setbacks as immutable defeats. She approached her mission with a deeply probabilistic view, understanding that while immediate comprehensive success was unlikely, each partial victory or even failure provided crucial data. She learned which arguments resonated with donors, which political avenues offered a higher probability of small gains, and how to adapt her strategies to the shifting, often hostile, landscape. By continuously iterating and adapting, treating each obstacle as information to refine her path, she transformed her small school into a thriving institution, Bethune-Cookman College, and became a powerful voice for racial and gender equality. Her unwavering resilience was not born from a naive belief in certain success, but from an astute embrace of uncertainty and a relentless commitment to learning from every outcome. How to start thinking probabilistically. If the concept of probabilistic thinking feels abstract or even intimidating, rest assured that you need no advanced degree in statistics to embark upon this transformative journey. The essence of this endeavor lies in cultivating a profound mindset, not in mastering complex equations. Here are a few practical, actionable steps to begin. Question your certainties. The next time you find yourself thinking in rigid absolutes, "This will definitely happen," or "That's impossible," pause. Take a moment to gently interrogate that conviction. How likely is this truly? Assign a rough, honest percentage to your estimation, e.g., a 70% chance, and then critically consider what tangible evidence supports or perhaps even challenges your assessment. Consider multiple outcomes. For any significant decision you face, challenge yourself to brainstorm at least 3 distinct possible outcomes. Even if some seem initially improbable, write them down. Then, with an open mind, estimate their respective probabilities and reflect deeply on how you would navigate each potential scenario. This powerful habit will gradually rewire your brain to perceive a spectrum of possibilities, rather than being fixated on a singular, often misleading, prediction. Learn from feedback. After a decision has been made and its consequences have unfolded, engage in a deliberate act of reflection. Did the actual outcome align with your initial expectations? If not, what new, invaluable information has revealed itself? How can this fresh insight be used to refine your probabilistic estimates for similar decisions in the future? This iterative process, this continuous loop of action and reflection, will, over time, sharpen your probabilistic acumen with remarkable precision. Start small. Begin by applying the principles of probabilistic thinking to low-stakes decisions in your daily life. Perhaps it's planning your weekend activities or choosing a restaurant for dinner. As you gradually grow more comfortable and adept with this new mental framework, confidently scale up your application to encompass larger, more impactful choices, such as significant career transitions or substantial financial investments. This incremental approach builds confidence and competence naturally. Exercise, reflecting on a recent decision. To immediately infuse the principles of probabilistic thinking into your lived experience, engage in this straightforward yet powerful exercise. Bring to mind a recent decision you made where you harbored an almost absolute certainty. Perhaps you were convinced a crucial meeting would unfold perfectly, or that a particular purchase was an unassailable deal, or that a meticulously crafted plan would progress without a single deviation. Now, take a few moments to genuinely respond to the following prompts. What was the decision? Describe the specific choice you made and the precise outcome you anticipated with such conviction. What actually happened? Did the real-world outcome align perfectly with your expectation, or were you met with an unexpected turn of events? How could a probabilistic approach have helped? Imagine, for a moment, that you had thoughtfully considered a range of multiple outcomes and their respective likelihoods before acting. Would your preparations have been different? Would you have made a different choice altogether? For instance, if you assumed with unwavering certainty that a job interview would culminate in a firm offer, could a probabilistic mindset have prompted you to proactively line up other potential opportunities, thereby preparing you for the possibility of rejection and reducing its sting? This reflective exercise serves as a potent mirror, allowing you to clearly discern instances where the illusion of certainty may have led you astray, and to illuminate how the embrace of probabilistic thinking could have revealed a richer, more adaptable universe of possibilities. Over time, this consistent self-reflection will organically cultivate the profound habit of approaching all decisions through the discerning, adaptive lens of probabilities. The road ahead. Probabilistic thinking is not a magical key to perfect foresight, nor is it a mystical incantation to banish uncertainty from your life. Instead, it is a profound and empowering philosophy, a disciplined approach that acknowledges the inherent unpredictability of existence, and crucially, transforms that very unpredictability into a powerful tool for superior decision-making. By consciously choosing to view outcomes through the nuanced lens of likelihoods, you equip yourself with an unparalleled capacity to navigate the intricate complexities of life with an elevated clarity, an unwavering confidence, and an extraordinary adaptability. This liberated mindset empowers you to anticipate a rich spectrum of possibilities, to meticulously prepare for life's inevitable, unexpected twists and turns, and to extract invaluable lessons from every single outcome, whether it gracefully manifests as a triumph or bravely presents itself as a temporary setback. As you venture further into the pages ahead, these chapters will serve as your trusted guides, leading you deeper into the art and science of probabilistic thinking. You will acquire the wisdom to deftly avoid the insidious pitfalls of binary thinking, to grasp the foundational principles of probability with an intuitive understanding, and to seamlessly apply these transformative principles to the most practical and vital domains of your life, be it the delicate dance of relationships, the strategic navigation of career choices, or the mindful stewardship of your health. Each successive step in this journey will meticulously build upon your burgeoning ability to think in probabilities, profoundly transforming not only the precise mechanics of how you make decisions, but the very essence of how you perceive and engage with life itself. The profound journey towards a truly probabilistic mindset commences with a singular, yet monumental, shift. The courageous act of releasing your tight grip on the illusory need for certainty and, in its place, wholeheartedly embracing the boundless power of possibility. By starting small, by courageously questioning your deeply ingrained assumptions, by thoughtfully considering a multitude of outcomes, and by diligently reflecting upon the consequences of your choices, you will, by degrees, reshape the very architecture of how you perceive the world. Over time, this nuanced approach will become as natural as breathing, a fundamental aspect of your being, unfailingly guiding you toward wiser choices, significantly diminishing the debilitating burden of stress, and empowering you to construct a life that stands resilient and unwavering in the beautiful, tumultuous face of uncertainty. The path ahead is not about foretelling every precise turn. It is, rather, about cultivating an unwavering readiness for whatever life, in its infinite and unpredictable wisdom, chooses to place upon your path. Chapter 2: The Trap of Binary Thinking. Life in its magnificent sprawl rarely presents itself as a simple choice between two paths. Yet, we in our hurried existence often reduce its intricate dance to a stark choice: black or white, triumph or failure, yes or no. This habit, this mental shortcut of binary thinking, is a cunning snare. It whispers promises of clarity and ease in a world that thrives on ambiguity. But beneath its appealing simplicity lies a profound cost, a blindness to the rich tapestry of possibilities that truly define our reality. In this chapter, we will pull back the curtain on binary thinking, expose its seductive flaws, and reveal the hidden biases that keep us shackled to its narrow view. We will then illuminate the path to probabilistic reasoning, a more expansive and adaptive way of seeing the world. By the end, you will understand how embracing the full spectrum of possibilities can liberate your mind and empower your decisions. The allure of binary thinking. Binary thinking is a deeply ingrained mental pattern, one that compels us to categorize complex situations into two opposing poles. Is it good or bad? Success or failure? Trustworthy or not? These questions, presented as absolute choices, betray a longing for certainty in a world that offers none. Why do we so readily succumb to this simplification? Our very wiring holds the answer. Our ancestors, faced with immediate dangers, the lurking predator, the rival tribe, the scarcity of food, needed to make lightning-fast, decisive judgments. Is that rustling in the bushes a threat, or is it merely the wind? Hesitation could be fatal. So the human mind evolved to prune away complexity, to distill reality into clear, actionable categories. This primal instinct served us well in a world of physical threats, where life and death hung on quick, binary assessments. However, the challenges of modern life, navigating career shifts, nurturing relationships, making shrewd investments, are rarely so clear-cut. Yet the ancient impulse persists, urging us to impose a rigid order on the inherent chaos of existence, to carve the world into neat, opposing boxes. Binary thinking also feeds our hunger for control. Uncertainty gnaws at us. It breeds anxiety and doubt. By framing decisions as a simple yes or no, we conjure an illusion of predictability. Consider the aspiring entrepreneur who sees their new venture as destined either for spectacular success or utter ruin. This mindset conveniently sidesteps the vast middle ground, the moderate successes, the strategic pivots, the valuable learning experiences disguised as partial failures. But life, a mischievous architect, seldom builds with absolutes. That startup might flourish in one market while sputtering in another, or it could stumble at first only to rise stronger with a refined strategy. Binary thinking obscures these nuanced possibilities, leaving us vulnerable to bitter disappointment or costly miscalculations when reality inevitably diverges from our rigid expectations. Cognitive biases that fuel the trap. Binary thinking does not exist in a vacuum. It is amplified by a host of cognitive biases, those subtle, unconscious mental shortcuts that twist our perception and interpretation of information. These biases, often operating beneath our awareness, relentlessly reinforce our predisposition to see the world in stark black and white. Let us unmask three prominent culprits: overconfidence, confirmation bias, and the insidious false dichotomy. Overconfidence, the illusion of certainty. Overconfidence is the audacious belief that our knowledge is deeper than it truly is, that our judgments are sharper and more accurate than the evidence warrants. It is the insistent whisper in our minds, "I have this all figured out," even when the signals are faint or contradictory. Overconfidence acts as a powerful accelerant for binary thinking, convincing us that our chosen category, be it success or failure, right or wrong, is not merely plausible, but the only conceivable outcome. Consider the ill-fated maiden voyage of the Titanic in 1912. The ship was famously proclaimed unsinkable, a pronouncement steeped in the intoxicating brew of overconfidence. Engineers, shipbuilders, and even the passengers themselves dismissed any notion of failure, blind to the spectrum of risks that lay between safe and doomed: the icebergs, the woefully inadequate lifeboats, the potential for human error. This binary mindset, this unquestioning belief in an absolute, led to a catastrophic loss of life. Had the designers paused to consider a range of probabilities, to acknowledge the genuine, however small, chance of disaster, They might have prioritized safety measures that could have averted the tragedy. Overconfidence deceives us into believing we can predict the future with pinpoint accuracy, when in truth, most situations are inherently probabilistic. A job offer may feel like an undeniable victory, yet there remains a possibility, however slim, that it will not align with our deepest aspirations. A relationship might appear irrevocably broken, but people can grow, circumstances can shift, and new chapters can always begin. By humbly acknowledging the limits of our foresight, we unlock the gateway to probabilistic thinking, allowing curiosity to temper our desire for absolute certainty. Confirmation bias, seeing what we want to see. Confirmation bias is our ingrained tendency to actively seek out, interpret, and recall information that affirms our existing beliefs, while conveniently overlooking or dismissing any evidence that dares to challenge them. It is akin to wearing specialized glasses that filter out anything that does not neatly fit into our preconceived notions. In the realm of binary thinking, confirmation bias ensnares us within one side of a dichotomy, rendering us blind to the existence of valid alternatives. Think of Ignaz Semmelweis, a Hungarian physician in the 1840s who made a groundbreaking discovery. Simple hand-washing dramatically reduced the alarming rates of childbirth mortality. At the time, the prevailing medical wisdom, a binary belief, held that puerperal fever was an unavoidable consequence of bad air or other mysterious, inevitable forces. When Semmelweis presented undeniable evidence linking unwashed hands to the spread of infection, his esteemed colleagues largely rejected his findings. They clung stubbornly to their black-and-white view of disease. Either it was unavoidable, or it was entirely unrelated to their own practices. They actively sought data that confirmed their entrenched beliefs and conveniently ignored Semmelweis's revolutionary insights, thereby delaying vital medical progress and costing countless lives. In our personal lives, confirmation bias can lead us to prematurely declare a project a failure based on an initial negative feedback, causing us to miss subsequent signs of improvement. Or we might brand a colleague as untrustworthy after a single mistake, disregarding their long history of reliability. Probabilistic thinking, on the other hand, acts as a powerful antidote to this bias. It compels us to consider all available evidence, not just the pieces that support our preferred narrative. It challenges us to ask, given the entirety of what I know, what is the likelihood that this belief is truly accurate? The false dichotomy, forcing a choice that isn't there. The false dichotomy is the ultimate trick of binary thinking. It presents us with a limited set of choices, often just two, implying that these are the only possibilities, when in reality, a multitude of other options exist. It forces a decision between two extremes, ignoring the rich spectrum of outcomes in between. This is the either-or trap, where the nuanced truth is sacrificed for a misleading simplicity. Consider the story of a young artist in the mid-20th century, Frida Kahlo, who after a devastating bus accident was told she would either never walk again or be permanently bedridden. The doctors presented her future as a grim binary. Yet, Kahlo refused to be confined by such a narrow prognosis. She transformed her bed into a studio, painting while lying down, and through sheer force of will and a willingness to explore every rehabilitative possibility, she eventually learned to walk again, albeit with pain. Her life was neither total immobility nor complete recovery. It was a testament to the myriad possibilities that exist beyond the declared extremes. This pattern repeats in our own lives. A student might perceive their future solely as gaining admission to a prestigious university or being a complete failure, completely disregarding viable alternatives like vocational training, entrepreneurial pursuits, or even less conventional, yet equally fulfilling, educational paths. A professional contemplating a career change might frame their decision as an all-or-nothing gamble, either diving headfirst into a new industry or clinging to their current safe, yet uninspiring, position. This binary lens prevents them from exploring interim steps, such as taking on side projects or part-time roles to test the waters before making a full commitment. The false dichotomy constricts our vision, making us brittle and inflexible when faced with life's inevitable shifts. The cost of binary thinking. The allure of simplicity offered by binary thinking masks a hefty price. When we reduce the world to absolutes, we inadvertently limit our capacity for innovation, resilience, and even happiness. Firstly, binary thinking stifles creativity. When a problem is framed as having only two solutions, right or wrong, succeed or fail, we stop searching for the myriad of innovative possibilities that lie beyond these poles. It encourages a rigid adherence to preconceived notions, rather than a curious exploration of the unknown. How many groundbreaking ideas have been abandoned because they didn't fit neatly into an existing, successful category, or because early challenges were interpreted as unequivocal failure? Secondly, it breeds fragility. A mind accustomed to only two outcomes is ill-equipped to handle the inevitable messy middle. When life delivers a result that is neither a resounding success nor a complete disaster, the binary thinker struggles to adapt. They might interpret anything less than perfection as failure, leading to demoralization and an inability to learn from nuanced feedback. This rigid interpretation makes us brittle in the face of uncertainty, prone to shattering when the unexpected, yet probable, occurs. Finally, binary thinking fuels anxiety and regret. By demanding certainty, we set ourselves up for constant disappointment in an uncertain world. The pressure to always be right or to achieve perfect success creates immense stress. When outcomes invariably fall short of these absolute ideals, regret takes root. We might lament choices made with conviction, even if at the time they were the most rational given the available information. This is because binary thinking judges outcomes as either wholly good or wholly bad, stripping away the valuable lessons embedded in every experience. The probabilistic alternative. Probabilistic thinking offers a profound liberation from the shackles of the binary trap. Instead of shoehorning possibilities into two rigid containers, it invites us to see outcomes as a vibrant spectrum, each point on that spectrum carrying its own degree of likelihood. This is not about possessing a crystal ball or predicting the future with infallible accuracy. Rather, it is about making informed estimations of probability, carefully weighing evidence, balancing intuition with data, and applying the gentle art of reason. This approach does not seek to eradicate uncertainty. It embraces it as a fundamental feature of existence. It transforms ambiguity from a source of paralysis into a potent tool for clearer, more adaptive decision-making. Imagine you stand at the crossroads of a significant decision, perhaps contemplating the launch of a new venture. A mind caught in the binary trap would likely frame this momentous choice as a stark, it will succeed, or it will fail. But a probabilistic perspective paints a far richer picture. A high likelihood of moderate success, e.g., 60%. The business finds its footing, generates steady revenue, and builds a loyal customer base, though it may not become a global sensation overnight. A moderate likelihood of significant growth, e.g., 30%. The venture captures a substantial market share, expands rapidly, and attracts significant investment, exceeding initial expectations. A smaller likelihood of failure or pivot, e.g., 10%. The business struggles to gain traction, requiring a complete shift in strategy or, in the worst case, a graceful exit. By mapping out these probabilities, you gain a panoramic view of the landscape ahead. You are no longer clinging to a single, fragile expectation. Instead, you are prepared for a range of possibilities, allowing you to allocate resources wisely, craft contingency plans, and adjust your course with agility as new information emerges. This isn't about avoiding risk. It's about making peace with it, acknowledging its presence, and managing it with clear eyes. Reframing binary beliefs. The journey from binary thinking to probabilistic reasoning begins with a conscious effort to reframe the rigid beliefs that hold us captive. It requires us to challenge the either or statements that dominate our inner dialogue and replace them with a more fluid, nuanced perspective. Let's say you hold the binary belief, I am either a success or a failure in my career. This belief is not only limiting, it's profoundly inaccurate. Life is rarely a destination. It is a continuous journey of growth, learning, and adaptation. To reframe this, you might ask, what is the likelihood I will achieve significant professional milestones within the next 5 years, given my skills and effort? E.g., 70% chance of promotion, 20% chance of starting my own successful business, 10% chance of lateral move for new skills. What is the probability I will encounter setbacks and challenges on this path? E.g., 90% certainty of obstacles, 10% chance of smooth sailing. Notice how this reframing immediately expands your mental landscape. It shifts your focus from a single, high-stakes outcome to a dynamic interplay of possibilities. It transforms failure from a final judgment into a mere data point, an opportunity to learn and adjust your probabilities for the next iteration. Another common binary belief is, this relationship will either last forever or it's a complete waste of time. This outlook ignores the profound value of connections that may be temporary but deeply meaningful. Reframe it. What is the likelihood this relationship will bring me joy and personal growth over the next year? E.g., 80% chance of positive experiences. What is the probability that the relationship will evolve into something different than I currently imagine, perhaps a deep friendship rather than a romance? E.g., 30% chance of redefinition. By challenging these binary prisons, we cultivate a mental flexibility that mirrors the unpredictable nature of reality. We learn to appreciate the partial successes, the valuable lessons gleaned from unexpected turns, and the quiet beauty of growth that often defies simple categorization. Overcoming resistance to probabilistic thinking. The shift from the comforting grip of certainty to the fluid embrace of probability is not without its challenges. Our minds, conditioned by years of binary thinking, often resist this liberation. This resistance stems from several deeply ingrained psychological tendencies. Fear of loss of control. The illusion of certainty, however false, offers a sense of control. To embrace probability feels like relinquishing that control, admitting that we cannot definitively predict or command outcomes. Yet, true control lies not in predicting the future, but in mastering our responses to its ever-shifting probabilities. Cognitive effort. Binary thinking is a low-effort mental shortcut. It's quick, decisive, and requires minimal processing. Probabilistic thinking, on the other hand, demands more cognitive energy. It asks us to weigh multiple variables, consider various scenarios, and constantly update our mental models. This effort can feel burdensome at first, but like any muscle, the probabilistic mind grows stronger with consistent exercise. Social reinforcement. Our society often rewards certainty. Leaders who project unwavering confidence, businesses that promise guaranteed results, and media that presents issues in stark, opposing terms are often perceived as strong and decisive. This societal bias can make it challenging to publicly express probabilistic views, which might be perceived as indecision or weakness. Yet, true wisdom lies in acknowledging complexity, not in feigning absolute knowledge. To overcome this resistance, we must cultivate a spirit of intellectual humility. This means acknowledging that our understanding is always incomplete, that every decision is a calculated risk, and that learning is an ongoing process of refining our probabilities. It means embracing the discomfort of maybe, rather than clinging to the deceptive comfort of certainty. The power of seeing the spectrum. The ultimate power of probabilistic thinking lies in its ability to unveil the rich, vibrant spectrum of life that binary thinking obscures. It transforms our perception from a narrow tunnel vision to a panoramic view, revealing opportunities and insights previously hidden. Imagine a painter who only uses two colors, black and white. Their canvas, though stark, would lack depth, nuance, and the subtle interplay of light and shadow. Now imagine a painter who commands a full palette of colors, each with its own shade and intensity. Their canvas bursts with life, reflecting the true complexity and beauty of the world. Binary thinking is the two-color painter. Probabilistic thinking wields the full spectrum. This expanded view allows for greater adaptability. When you anticipate a range of outcomes, you become inherently more flexible. You are not blindsided when a plan doesn't unfold exactly as hoped because you've already considered variations and prepared for contingencies. Richer learning. Every outcome, whether it leans toward your best case or worst case scenario, becomes a valuable data point. Instead of simply labeling it success or failure, you analyze why it landed where it did, refining your understanding of the underlying probabilities for future decisions. Reduced emotional volatility. The emotional roller coaster of binary thinking, the euphoria of success, followed by the despair of failure, is smoothed out. By expecting a range of outcomes, you experience less emotional whiplash when reality deviates from a single, rigid expectation. You develop a calmer, more measured response to life's ebb and flow. Unlocking new solutions. When you stop forcing problems into either or boxes, you open your mind to entirely new approaches. The middle ground that binary thinking dismisses often holds the most innovative and resilient solutions. Her detailed statistical reports, filled with objective evidence, demonstrated that unsanitary conditions were the primary killer. This data allowed her to argue, with high probability, that improved hygiene and sanitation would drastically reduce deaths. Her evidence wasn't just numbers. It was a powerful narrative that changed military medicine forever. In our modern era, we are awash in data that Nightingale could only have dreamt of. Weather applications synthesize vast oceans of information to predict precipitation. Medical professionals lean on countless studies to estimate the likelihood of a treatment's success. Even in the realm of personal choices, like selecting a restaurant, we instinctively rely on evidence, reviews, past experiences, a friend's enthusiastic recommendation to gauge the probability of a delightful meal. The profound lesson here is that evidence, whether expressed in numbers or whispered in anecdotes, forms the bedrock of sound probabilistic thinking. Without it, we are merely adrift in the dark, navigating by instinct alone. Subjective vs. Objective probabilities. Not all probabilities are born equal. Some are forged in the fires of hard data, while others are shaped by the subtle currents of human experience. Understanding this distinction is crucial to becoming a skilled probabilistic thinker. Objective probabilities are those derived from measurable data, repeated trials, or established facts. Think of flipping a fair coin. The probability of landing on heads is objectively 50%. We know this because, over many flips, the outcomes will converge on an equal split. Similarly, when a doctor tells you a certain surgery has a 95% success rate, they are quoting an objective probability, based on historical patient outcomes and clinical trials. This kind of probability is verifiable. If you repeat the experiment, you'll get roughly the same results. Subjective probabilities, on the other hand, are your personal estimations of likelihood, often based on intuition, limited information, or unique experiences. If you believe there's a 70% chance your favorite sports team will win the championship, that's a subjective probability. It's influenced by your knowledge of the team, their recent performance, and perhaps a touch of hopeful optimism. These probabilities are not necessarily right or wrong in an absolute sense, but they are deeply personal and can be highly influenced by our biases. The challenge and the art lies in balancing these two. While objective probabilities offer a solid foundation, Life rarely provides us with perfectly clean data. We often find ourselves in situations where we must rely on our gut feelings calibrated by past observations. The perils of gut feelings and how to calibrate them. Our gut feelings are powerful guides, shaped by years of experience and countless subconscious computations. But they are also notoriously unreliable, prone to biases and blind spots. Relying solely on intuition can lead us astray, particularly in complex situations where emotions or past failures cloud our judgment. For instance, after a particularly bad investment, your gut might tell you to avoid all investments, even if objective data suggests otherwise. Or, after a string of successes, your intuition might inflate your confidence, leading you to take unnecessary risks. So, how do we honor our intuition without being led astray? The answer lies in calibrating your probabilities. This means consciously comparing your subjective estimates with objective evidence and adjusting your internal models accordingly. It's like tuning a musical instrument. You want your inner sense of likelihood to be in harmony with reality. Consider the strategic decisions made by Allied commanders during World War II, particularly leading up to D-Day. While they had extensive intelligence reports, objective data, there was still an element of subjective judgment involved in estimating the enemy's reactions or the success of various deception tactics. General Eisenhower and his staff had to constantly calibrate their initial assessments with new reconnaissance, weather reports, and even the psychological profiles of enemy leaders. An initial gut feeling about a certain landing beach might be revised based on aerial photographs revealing unexpected fortifications. This constant interplay between subjective judgment and objective evidence was crucial to their eventual success. Why rough estimates are enough. The idea of assigning percentages to life's uncertainties might seem daunting, almost like trying to measure the wind with a ruler. But here, a liberating truth, rough estimates are often enough. You don't need to be a precision engineer to make an educated guess. The goal isn't to be perfectly accurate, it's to be less wrong. The value isn't in the exact number, but in the mental process it forces you to undertake. When you assign a probability, even a fuzzy one, you are compelled to consider what you know, what evidence supports your estimate. Consider what you don't know, what information is missing. Think about the alternatives. What other outcomes are possible and how likely are they? This structured thinking, even with imprecise numbers, is infinitely more valuable than a binary yes or no. It opens your mind to the spectrum of possibilities, which is the cornerstone of effective probabilistic thinking. As Jonas Salk and his team faced the monumental task of developing the polio vaccine in the 1950s, they didn't have perfect foresight. They estimated a high probability that the vaccine would significantly reduce polio cases, a lower probability for a modest effect, and a very small probability for failure or severe side effects. While the exact percentages were refined over time, these initial, well-reasoned estimates were sufficient to justify the massive trials that ultimately saved countless lives. Their success wasn't built on absolute certainty, but on well-calibrated, though imperfect, probabilities. Exercise. Estimate the probability of a small personal goal. To truly grasp these concepts, you must engage with them. Pick a small, personal goal you aim to achieve this week. It could be something as simple as exercising 3 times, completing a particular task at work, or having a meaningful conversation with a loved one. Now, take out a notebook or open a document and follow these steps. State your goal. Clearly write down your small personal goal for the week. Estimate its probability. On a scale of 0% to 100%, how likely do you think you are to achieve this goal? Don't overthink it. Just write down your initial gut feeling. List the evidence supporting. What factors, past experiences, or resources make it more likely that you will achieve this goal? E.g., I've exercised consistently for the past month. I have dedicated time blocked out. My gym is conveniently located. List the evidence challenging. What factors, potential obstacles, or past failures make it less likely that you will achieve this goal? E.g., I have a busy week at work. I sometimes feel unmotivated. My exercise partner is out of town. Refine your probability. After considering both the supporting and challenging evidence, does your initial probability still feel right? Adjust it if necessary. Reflect. How did listing the evidence change your perspective? Did you uncover factors you hadn't initially considered? This process of questioning and refining is the essence of probabilistic thinking. This simple exercise, repeated often, will begin to rewire your mind, training it to see the world not in rigid certainties, but in a vibrant spectrum of possibilities. The path forward. The foundations we've laid in this chapter are not merely academic concepts. They are the bedrock upon which you will build a more resilient, adaptable, and insightful approach to life. By understanding what probability truly is, demystifying its core terms, and recognizing the critical role of evidence and the need to calibrate our intuitions, you are already well on your way. The journey into probabilistic thinking is not about acquiring a new set of rigid rules, but about cultivating a new way of seeing. It's about letting go of the desperate need for absolute certainty, and instead finding freedom in the endless dance of likelihoods. As you move forward, the skills you've begun to develop here, the ability to estimate, to gather evidence, to refine your beliefs, will serve as your compass in a world that is, by its very nature, wonderfully unpredictable. Embrace the maybe, for in its embrace lies true power. Chapter 4. Updating your beliefs with new evidence. Life unfolds not as a fixed script, but as a continuous conversation between what we believe and what reality reveals. Too often, we cling to our initial assumptions as if they are sacred truths, even when the world whispers or shouts new information in our ear. This rigidity is a heavy anchor in a fluid sea, holding us back from smarter choices and deeper understanding. The art of living well, the art of navigating the maybe, lies in our willingness to update our internal maps when the landscape changes. It's about learning to be a quiet scientist of your own life, running experiments, observing results, and refining your theories about how things work. The ever-shifting sands of belief. Imagine for a moment that your mind is like a vast, complex library filled with countless books. Each book represents a belief you hold, from "the sun will rise tomorrow" to "I am good at X" or "this plan will definitely work." When you encounter new information, what do? Do you frantically search for a book that confirms what you already know? Or do you open a new volume, ready to rewrite entire sections, perhaps even discard old ones? Most of us, wired for efficiency and comfort, prefer the former. We're quick to embrace information that aligns with our existing beliefs and surprisingly adept at ignoring or dismissing anything that doesn't. This isn't laziness, it's a deeply ingrained cognitive habit. Yet the world is in constant motion. What was true yesterday might be less true today, and certainly less so tomorrow. Our beliefs, if they are to serve us, must mirror this dynamism. They must be like living documents, open to revision. This principle of updating beliefs isn't some abstract philosophical idea. It's the engine of progress, discovery, and personal growth. Every scientist, successful investor, and adaptable leader understands this on a visceral level. They don't fall in love with their hypotheses. They fall in love with the process of discovery, which inherently means being willing to be wrong, to adjust, to improve. Bayes' theorem, a compass for a changing world. At the heart of updating our beliefs lies a concept often shrouded in intimidating mathematics, Bayes' theorem. But don't let the name deter you. Stripped down, it's a simple, elegant idea that anyone can grasp and apply. Think of it as a logical compass for navigating uncertainty. Here's the core idea. Every time you encounter new evidence, you should use it to adjust your existing beliefs about the likelihood of something being true. It's a systematic way to answer the question, how much should this new piece of information change what I already thought? Let's simplify it further, as if explaining it to a curious child. Imagine you believe a hidden treasure is in your backyard. This is your initial belief, or prior probability. Maybe you think there's a 30% chance because your quirky gray Dan always told wild stories. Now, you find an old, rusted key buried near the oak tree. This is your new evidence. How does finding the key change your belief about the treasure? Bayes' theorem helps you combine your initial belief, the 30% chance, with the new evidence, the key. It asks two crucial questions about the new evidence. How likely is this evidence if my initial belief is true? If there really is treasure, how likely is it that a key would be nearby? If the treasure is in a chest, a key is very likely. How likely is this evidence if my initial belief is false? If there is no treasure, how likely is it you'd find a random old key? Maybe not very likely, but possible. By weighing these two possibilities, the theorem provides a new, updated belief, your posterior probability. If finding the key is much more likely if there's treasure than if there isn't, your belief in treasure should go up significantly. If finding a key is equally likely whether there's treasure or not, e.g., if keys are just randomly scattered everywhere, then your belief shouldn't change much at all. This isn't about perfect calculation in daily life. It's about cultivating a mindset where every new piece of information prompts a quiet recalibration of your assumptions. It's the difference between stubbornly holding onto a prediction even after it starts to rain, and simply opening your umbrella and accepting that the forecast was less certain than you thought. Real-life applications. Your life as a Bayesian laboratory. This isn't just for treasure hunts or abstract theories. This way of thinking reshapes how you navigate the most intimate and impactful aspects of your life. Job searches. Adjusting your sails in the hearing wind. Consider the often tumultuous journey of a job search. You send out resumes, filled with hope, believing you have a strong chance of landing your dream role. Let's say your initial belief, your prior, is a 60% chance of getting an interview for a specific company. You've researched them, tailored your resume, and feel confident. Then the new evidence arrives, a polite, automated rejection email. If you cling to your 60% prior, you'll be crushed, perhaps believing the system is rigged or you're simply not good enough. But a probabilistic thinker, applying the Bayesian lens, processes this new data. If your initial belief of getting an interview was accurate 60% chance, then a rejection, the new evidence, dramatically lowers that probability. The key is how much it lowers it. Was the rejection generic or specific to your application? Did you realize in hindsight that your skills weren't a perfect match? Each piece of evidence updates your posterior probability for similar applications in the future. This isn't about giving up. It's about adjusting your expectations and strategy. Maybe you discover your resume needs tweaking, or you need to target roles that are a better fit. Perhaps the initial 60% was overly optimistic given the company's competitiveness. This iterative process, constantly updating your job search success probability, makes you more resilient and effective, turning rejections into valuable feedback rather than soul-crushing failures. Relationships, the subtle dance of trust and expectations. Human relationships are complex tapestries woven from countless interactions. We form beliefs about others' reliability, their intentions, and their likely reactions. These beliefs, too, must be constantly updated. Imagine your friend Alex has always been reliable. Your prior belief, Alex will show up on time for your coffee meeting with a 90% certainty. This is a strong prior built on years of positive evidence. Then, new evidence. Alex is 30 minutes late without a text. A rigid thinker might immediately update their belief to 0% trust, feeling betrayed. But a probabilistic thinker uses this new data to adjust the 90%, not erase it. Was there a plausible reason for the lateness? Traffic, an emergency? Did they apologize sincerely? Each piece of new evidence, positive or negative, subtly shifts your probability of Alex's future reliability. It's rarely 0% or 100%. It's a recalibration. This continuous updating allows for nuance and forgiveness. It prevents you from holding grudges based on outdated information, and it prevents you from being consistently disappointed because you're operating on unrealistic priors. It's the difference between believing someone is a certain way and understanding that they are likely to behave a certain way based on the most current evidence. This fosters adaptability in your relationships, recognizing that people, like life itself, are constantly evolving. Health decisions, navigating the maze of wellness. In the realm of health, certainty is often a dangerous illusion. Every treatment, every lifestyle choice comes with probabilities, not guarantees. This is where updating your beliefs becomes not just useful but vital. Consider a person diagnosed with a chronic condition. Their doctor recommends a specific treatment, explaining it has an 80% success rate based on clinical trials. This is the patient's strong initial belief, their prior. However, after 3 months, they experience minimal improvement, new evidence. A rigid patient might despair, feeling the treatment has failed absolutely. A probabilistic patient, however, revisits their 80% prior. Given the new evidence, what's the updated probability that this treatment will eventually work for them? Perhaps it drops to 50% or even lower. This doesn't mean giving up. It means prompting a conversation with their doctor. Should we adjust the dosage? Try a different medication? Explore alternative therapies? This dynamic, evidence-driven approach to health empowers individuals. It transforms passive acceptance into active engagement, ensuring decisions are based on the latest personal data, not just initial population statistics. It acknowledges that while broad probabilities are a starting point, individual outcomes are unique. Overcoming resistance to updating beliefs. If updating our beliefs is so beneficial, why don't we do it more naturally? The answer lies in several ingrained cognitive traps that actively resist the flow of new information. The sunk cost fallacy, the anchor of past investments. One of the most insidious hindrances is the sunk cost fallacy. Imagine you've spent years studying for a specific career path. Your belief in this path's success is high because of the immense time, money, and effort you've already invested. Then, new evidence emerges. The industry is declining, or you discover a new passion that excites you more. The sunk cost fallacy tempts you to double down on your original investment, even when the probabilities for a positive outcome have drastically decreased. I've already put so much into this, your mind whispers. I can't just give up now. This attachment to past investment, rather than focusing on future probabilities, leads to clinging to outdated beliefs and making poor decisions. Probabilistic thinking helps you cut the anchor and steer toward more promising horizons by focusing on what's likely to happen from this point forward, not what you've already spent. Confirmation bias, the echo chamber of our minds. As explored in Chapter 2, confirmation bias makes us actively seek out, interpret, and favor information that confirms our existing beliefs. If you believe a new project is doomed, you'll unconsciously pay more attention to negative feedback and dismiss positive signs. This creates an echo chamber where your initial belief is constantly reinforced, making it incredibly difficult to update, even in the face of contradictory evidence. To counteract this, you must deliberately seek out disconfirming evidence. Play devil's advocate with your own thoughts. Ask, what would have to be true for my belief to be wrong? Actively seek diverse perspectives and opinions that challenge your own. This isn't about being contrarian. It's about building a more accurate, nuanced understanding of reality. Emotional attachment, the heart's hold on logic. Sometimes, our beliefs are not just intellectual constructs. They are deeply intertwined with our emotions and identities. Admitting a belief is wrong can feel like admitting we are wrong, or that a part of our identity is flawed. This emotional attachment can be a powerful resistor to updating. For example, a person might deeply believe that hard work alone guarantees success. This belief might be tied to their self-worth or their family's values. When they work tirelessly but face setbacks, new evidence arises that challenges this simple equation. The emotional pain of questioning this core belief can be immense, leading to denial or rationalization rather than genuine updating. To overcome this, cultivate a sense of intellectual humility. Recognize that your beliefs are separate from your worth. It's okay to be wrong. It's how we learn. Frame updating beliefs not as a personal failing, but as a sign of strength, wisdom, and adaptability. It's a hallmark of a mind that's truly engaged with the world, rather than hiding from its complexities. Practical tools for Bayesian thinking. You don't need a supercomputer to apply Bayesian principles to your daily life. Simple, practical tools can train your mind to update its beliefs effectively. A belief journal, this is perhaps the most powerful tool. Regularly record specific beliefs you hold and assign a probability to them. For example, I believe I will get that promotion 75% likely, or this new diet will improve my energy 60% likely. Then note down the evidence for and against your belief. After a week or a month, check the outcome. Did you get the promotion? Did your energy improve? Reflect on how accurate your initial estimate was and why. This systematic reflection trains your brain to calibrate its predictions over time. It makes the abstract process of updating tangible. Historical example. In the 1920s, a young entrepreneur named Clara Schmidt started a small garment factory in Weimar Republic, Germany, a period of immense economic instability. She didn't have access to sophisticated market data. Instead, she kept a meticulous belief ledger. Each week, she'd record her estimate for the likelihood of sales increasing, raw material costs stabilizing, or new orders coming in, assigning rough percentages. She'd note the evidence for each. Saw increased foot traffic in fashion district, positive for sales. Heard rumors of textile shortages, negative for materials. Then she'd track the actual outcomes. Over time, she noticed her initial optimism sometimes blinded her to warning signs. By consistently reviewing her ledger, she learned to temper her predictions with a dose of skepticism and to quickly adapt her production based on new, albeit often anecdotal, evidence. Her belief ledger wasn't just accounting. It was her personal Bayesian machine, helping her factory survive and even thrive through turbulent times. Ask what's the evidence. Before making a decision or solidifying a belief, pause and ask yourself, what evidence supports this belief? And what evidence would challenge this belief? Be ruthless in your search. Don't just look for confirming data, actively seek out information that might prove you wrong. This simple question forces you to engage with reality rather than just your internal assumptions. Use a probability scale. Instead of thinking in absolute terms like "I'll never succeed" or "this is guaranteed," assign probabilities on a scale from 0% to 100%. For example, instead of thinking "I'm bad at public speaking," you might say, "I have a 70% chance of feeling anxious during my next presentation, but a 30% chance of delivering it smoothly." Then, after the presentation, you update that probability. Perhaps you felt only 50% anxious, so you adjust your future probability of anxiety down to 50%. This constant recalibration brings precision to your self-assessment and allows for incremental improvement. Seek diverse perspectives. Our own experiences are limited. The best new evidence often comes from others. Actively seek out people with different backgrounds, expertise, or viewpoints. If you're considering a career change, talk to someone who successfully made a similar pivot and someone who tried and struggled. Their insights can expose blind spots in your own thinking and provide valuable data to update your beliefs. Remember to weigh their reliability. An expert's opinion usually holds more weight than a random comment. Case study: the entrepreneur's iterative rise. Let's look at the story of Madam C.J. Walker, a pioneering Black American entrepreneur and philanthropist in the early 20th century. Born Sarah Breedlove, she developed and marketed a line of hair care products for Black women at a time when such products were scarce, and the market was entirely underserved. Initially, her belief in the demand for her products might have been based on her own struggles with hair loss and observations within her community, a strong prior. However, scaling a business from a single individual selling door-to-door to a nationwide enterprise required constant updating of beliefs. Her initial strategy involved direct sales, traveling extensively. This was her prior. Personal demonstrations are the best way to sell. But as she expanded, new evidence emerged. She couldn't be everywhere at once. The probability of reaching a national market solely through direct sales was very low, so she updated her belief. This led to a pivotal shift. She developed a robust network of commission-based agents, training walker agents who sold her products door-to-door across the country. This was a massive update to her initial business model, based on the new evidence of scale and geographic reach. She also learned from feedback on her products, iteratively refining formulas based on customer input, evidence that directly updated her beliefs about what products were most effective. When she introduced her products in the Caribbean, she likely had a prior belief about their market fit, but new evidence from local sales and cultural nuances would have forced her to update her marketing and distribution strategies. She didn't cling to a single, unchangeable business plan. Each sales report, each customer complaint, each new market entered served as fresh evidence, continuously refining her model of how her business would succeed. This relentless iteration and willingness to update her beliefs allowed her to build a multi-million-dollar empire and become one of America's first self-made female millionaires. Exercise, updating a core belief. To truly grasp this, let's put it into practice. Pick a belief you hold about yourself or a significant decision you are facing. State your belief and assign a probability. Write down the belief. Now, honestly assign a percentage from 0% to 100% that represents your current confidence in that belief. Example, I believe I am not good at networking. My confidence in this is 80%. Example, I believe there's a 70% chance my new business idea will succeed. List supporting and challenging evidence. For your chosen belief, list 3 pieces of evidence that support it and 3 pieces of evidence that challenge it. Be brutally honest, even if it feels uncomfortable. For I am not good at networking, 80% confidence. Supporting evidence. Last networking event, I stood awkwardly in a corner. I find small talk exhausting. I've never gotten a job through networking. Challenging evidence. Last week, I had a great conversation with a stranger on a plane. A colleague once told me I'm a good listener. I recently read a book on introverted networking that gave me new strategies. Update your belief. Based on the new evidence you've listed, how does your confidence in your initial belief change? Adjust the percentage. For I am not good at networking. After considering the challenging evidence, my confidence in this belief might drop from 80% to 60%. I still find it hard, but I see a glimmer of possibility for improvement. Identify actions. What actions can you take based on this updated belief? These actions should aim to either gather more evidence or test the new, adjusted probability. Action for I am not good at networking. Now 60% confidence. Attend one small, structured networking event this month and focus on listening, not just talking. This will give me new evidence to further update my belief. This exercise forces you to confront the data, both confirming and disconfirming, and actively engage in the process of belief revision. It transforms fixed ideas into fluid hypotheses, ready to be refined by the continuous stream of life's lessons. The path to clarity, a lifetime of learning. The ability to update your beliefs with new evidence is not a destination, it's a lifelong journey. It is the hallmark of a mind that is truly alive, constantly learning, adapting, and growing. This probabilistic approach doesn't promise perfect foresight, for such a thing is impossible. But it does promise something far more valuable: clarity in the face of complexity, resilience in the face of setbacks, and the profound satisfaction of truly understanding the world as it is, not as you wish it to be. As you move through your days, cultivate this habit of Bayesian updating. Question your certainties, seek out new information, and be willing to change your mind, for in that willingness lies the true power to transform your life. Chapter 5. Embracing Uncertainty as a Strength. The human spirit, in its endless quest for order, often recoils from the shapeless void of uncertainty. We crave firm ground beneath our feet, a clear path ahead. Yet life, in its profound wisdom, rarely grants us such comforts. Instead, it offers a dynamic landscape, ever-shifting, ever-unpredictable. To fear this inherent quality of existence is to shackle ourselves, to freeze at the crossroads, paralyzed by the absence of a guaranteed outcome. This chapter is an invitation to shed that fear, to recognize uncertainty not as a flaw in the grand design, but as a fundamental feature, and indeed, a profound source of strength. The shadow of the unknown, why we fear uncertainty. Our aversion to uncertainty is deeply wired. From the earliest days of our species, the unknown often signaled danger. A rustle in the grass could mean predator or prey, a sudden change in weather, feast or famine. Survival depended on swift, decisive action, often based on binary assessments, safe or perilous. This ancient wiring, though vital in a primitive world, often trips us up in the nuanced complexities of modern life. Today, the predators are less often saber-toothed tigers and more often abstract anxieties. Will I get that promotion? Is this relationship truly stable? What if my business venture fails? When faced with such questions, our minds often demand a definitive yes or no. The lack of a clear answer can feel like a threat, triggering stress, anxiety, and a debilitating paralysis. We expend immense energy trying to predict every curveball, to nail down every variable, only to find ourselves exhausted and no closer to certainty. This desperate grasp for control, ironically, makes us brittle, prone to breaking when life inevitably deviates from our meticulously planned script. Reclaiming the narrative, uncertainty as a feature, not a flaw. Consider the master craftsman who works with wood. He knows each plank possesses its unique grain, its knots, its imperfections. He doesn't fight these natural qualities. He incorporates them, allowing the wood to guide his hand, adapting his design to its inherent character. In the same way, life's uncertainty is not an imperfection to be eradicated, but a fundamental characteristic to be understood and leveraged. To reframe uncertainty is to accept that the future is not a predetermined path, but a probability distribution. It's a spectrum of possibilities, each with its own likelihood. This shift in perspective is liberating. When you cease to demand certainty, you free yourself from the tyranny of needing to know what cannot be known. You move from a rigid expectation of a single outcome to an agile preparedness for many. This is not about passive acceptance, but about active engagement with reality. Navigating the uncharted, strategies to thrive in uncertainty. Once we embrace uncertainty as a given, we unlock powerful strategies that transform it from a threat into an ally. Scenario planning, mapping the possibilities. When you face a significant decision, your mind often fixates on a single, most desired outcome, or perhaps the most feared. Scenario planning breaks this habit. It's like writing a choose-your-own-adventure story for your decisions. You imagine different ways a situation could play out and guess how likely each is. Take, for instance, a leader facing a major strategic shift in their industry. Instead of betting everything on one optimistic forecast, they might delineate 3 plausible scenarios. Best case, e.g., 30% likelihood. New technology rapidly adopted, market expands, and competitors are slow to react. Middle ground, e.g., 50% likelihood. Moderate adoption, market evolves steadily, and some new entrants emerge. Worst case, e.g., 20% likelihood. Slow adoption, significant regulatory hurdles, and aggressive competition. For each scenario, the leader sketches out a brief narrative. What would it look like? What opportunities would arise? And what challenges would demand attention? This exercise doesn't predict the future, but it prepares the mind for a range of futures, making it less likely to be blindsided and more capable of responding effectively when one of these possibilities, or something akin to them, materializes. Hedging your bets, spreading the risk. The wise farmer does not plant all his seeds in one field, nor does he rely on a single crop. He diversifies, knowing that weather, pests, or market shifts could wipe out a singular investment. This is the essence of hedging, spreading your efforts or resources across multiple possibilities to mitigate the impact of any single negative outcome. In your own life, hedging might mean applying to multiple jobs while exploring a side hustle, or learning a new skill while maintaining your current role. If you are considering a career change, for example, you might pursue a certification in a new field while still employed, rather than quitting your job outright. This way, if the new field does not pan out as expected, a distinct possibility in an uncertain world, you still have your current source of income and experience. By diversifying your efforts, you create a safety net that makes uncertainty less intimidating. You are not gambling on one outcome but preparing for a range of possibilities. Focusing on what you can control. Uncertainty often feels overwhelming because we fixate on factors beyond our control, like other people's decisions or external events. Probabilistic thinking encourages us to focus on what we can influence: our actions, our preparation, and our mindset. This shift reduces anxiety and empowers us to act. Consider the story of Ernest Shackleton, the Antarctic explorer whose 1914 endurance expedition became a legendary tale of survival. When his ship was trapped and crushed by ice, Shackleton faced extreme uncertainty. Could his crew survive the harsh conditions? Could they reach safety? Instead of despairing over the uncontrollable fact of their stranded vessel, Shackleton focused ruthlessly on what he could control: the morale of his men, the careful rationing of supplies, the strategic planning of their perilous journey across the ice and sea. His unwavering focus on controllable actions, in the face of immense uncertainty, ultimately led to the survival of his entire crew. Case study: planning a career change. Let us consider Ilara, a software engineer feeling stagnant in her corporate role. She yearned for more creative freedom, perhaps even to start her own venture, but the leap felt terrifying. The binary trap whispered, either stay safe or risk everything. Applying probabilistic thinking, Ilara reframed her situation. She mapped out multiple career change scenarios, not just two. Outcome A, 40% likelihood. Successfully pivots to a smaller, innovative tech startup, gaining creative freedom and a slight pay increase. Outcome B, 35% likelihood. Lands a contract role as a freelance developer, offering flexibility but inconsistent income. Outcome C, 20% likelihood. Fails to find a suitable tech role, but her networking leads to a related opportunity in technical writing, a field she previously considered. Outcome D, 5% likelihood. Returns to her current corporate role or a similar one, having gained clarity on what she truly seeks or doesn't seek. Ilara then designed strategies for each. To boost Outcome A, she aggressively networked within the startup community and polished her portfolio. For Outcome B, she researched freelancing platforms and honed her client acquisition skills. For Outcome C, she took a short online course in technical writing. By holding multiple possibilities in her mind, Ilara transformed her daunting decision into a series of calculated, manageable steps. She was no longer paralyzed by the single, uncertain leap, but empowered by a spectrum of paths. Exercise: creating a decision tree. A decision tree is a simple visual tool that brings these concepts to life. It's like mapping out the branches of possibilities for an upcoming choice. Define your decision. Clearly state the choice you are facing. For instance, should I pursue an advanced degree next year? List possible outcomes. Write down at least 3 potential outcomes. Think about a best case, a middle ground, and a worst case. For example, if you're considering moving to a new city, outcomes might be thriving in a new job and social circle, best case. Struggling to find work but enjoying the city, middle ground. Disliking the city and returning home, worst case. Estimate probabilities. Assign a rough percentage to each outcome based on evidence like your skills, resources, or past experiences. Do not overthink it. Rough estimates are fine. For instance, you might estimate a 40% chance of thriving, a 50% chance of struggling but enjoying, and a 10% chance of returning home. Identify actions. For each outcome, list 1 or 2 actions you can take to improve the likelihood of a positive result or mitigate a negative one. For example, to boost the chance of thriving, you might research job markets or join local groups before moving. Reflect, review your decision tree. How does it feel to see uncertainty mapped out? Does it make the decision less intimidating? Adjust your plan as needed, focusing on actions within your control. Here is a simple template to guide you. Decision, your decision here. Outcomes and probabilities. Best case, Roman 20%. Describe outcome. Middle ground, Roman 20%. Describe outcome. Worst case, Roman 20%. Describe outcome. Actions to influence outcomes. Best case, Action 1, Action 2. Middle ground, Action 1, Action 2. Worst case, Action 1, Action 2. Try this exercise with a real decision you are facing. Write it down, estimate probabilities, and map out your actions. You will likely find that uncertainty feels less like a void and more like a puzzle you can solve. Conclusion: the strength of maybe. To embrace uncertainty is to recognize the true nature of reality. It is to move beyond the false comfort of rigid predictions and step into the dynamic flow of possibilities. By reframing uncertainty as a feature rather than a flaw, and by deploying strategies like scenario planning, hedging, and focusing on controllable actions, you equip yourself not just to survive, but to thrive in a world that refuses to be tamed. The strength lies not in knowing what will happen, but in being ready for whatever may come. This is the profound power of maybe. Chapter 6: Quantifying Your Decisions. In a world teeming with the unknown, where certainties are fleeting shadows, the true mastery of living lies not in predicting the future, but in understanding its various shades of possibility. We have journeyed through the traps of binary thinking and laid the foundational stones of probability. Now, we arrive at the frontier where intuition meets illumination, the art of quantifying your decisions. This is not a cold, sterile exercise in mathematics, but a potent practice to bring clarity and confidence to the choices that shape your destiny. It is about transforming vague hunches into actionable insights, making the invisible probabilities visible. The power of simple instruments. To quantify a decision is to assign a numerical likelihood to its potential outcomes. This might sound daunting, a task for statisticians alone, but it is far simpler than you imagine. Think of it less as a rigorous scientific calculation and more as drawing a map for your mind. You are giving your intuition a language, a structure, to express what it truly believes about the world. When you assign numbers, even rough ones, you compel yourself to think with greater precision. You move from the blurry realm of maybe to the clearer skies of there's a 70% chance. This is a profound shift. Consider the story of Mary Golda Ross, a Cherokee woman who became the first Native American female engineer at Lockheed in the 1940s. Faced with complex aerodynamic problems and the nascent field of missile design, Mary couldn't rely on simple guesswork. Her work was inherently probabilistic. Countless variables could affect the trajectory and performance of an aircraft. Instead of despairing in the face of such uncertainty, she harnessed the power of quantification. She would break down complex problems into smaller, estimable components, assigning probabilities to the success of each part, whether it was a new material's performance under stress or a design modification's impact on stability. Her calculations, often rudimentary by today's standards, allowed her to build complex models that helped guide critical decisions in aerospace engineering, demonstrating that even rough quantification can pave the way for extraordinary achievements. Decision matrices, mapping the landscape. One of the simplest yet most powerful tools for quantifying decisions is the decision matrix. Imagine a grid, a canvas upon which you can map the landscape of your choices. On one axis, list your available options. On the other, list the key criteria or potential outcomes that matter to you. For instance, if you are considering two job offers, your options might be Job A and Job B. Your criteria could include salary, career growth, work-life balance, and company culture. For each intersection, each option against each criterion, you assign a score. This score isn't merely a subjective good or bad. It's a quantified estimate of how well that option fulfills that criterion or how likely a particular outcome is. You might use a simple 1-5 scale or even a percentage. For salary, Job A might score a 4, high, while Job B scores a 3, medium. For career growth, Job A might have a 60% chance of promotion within 2 years, while Job B has an 80% chance. This exercise forces you to weigh the various dimensions of your choice, making explicit the trade-offs you might otherwise only vaguely consider. It's like drawing a blueprint for your decision, allowing you to see the probabilities of different aspects of your choice more clearly. Expected value, weighing costs and benefits. Once you have a sense of probabilities, you can use a concept called expected value to make more informed choices. Don't let the term intimidate you. It's simpler than it sounds. Expected value, EV, helps you weigh the potential outcomes of a decision against their likelihoods, giving you a numerical average of what you can expect to gain or lose over time if you were to make that decision repeatedly. Here, how it works. For each possible outcome of a decision, you multiply its value, e.g., a monetary gain, a measure of happiness, a career benefit by its probability of occurring. Then you sum up these products. The result is the expected value of that decision. Let's say you're a small business owner deciding whether to launch a new product. Outcome 1, big success. You estimate a 30% chance of making an additional $50,000 profit. Outcome 2, moderate success. You estimate a 50% chance of making an additional $10,000 profit. Outcome 3, failure. You estimate a 20% chance of losing $5,000 due to development costs and no sales. The expected value calculation would be EV equals 0.3 asterisk $50,000 plus dollars 50 cents asterisk $10,000 plus $0.25000. EV equals $15,000 plus $5,000, $1,000. EV equals $19,000. This $19,000 is not a guarantee of what you will earn, but rather the average profit you would expect if you made this exact decision many times. It provides a powerful, single number to compare against other options, giving you a clearer picture of the choice's worth in the long run. Expected value is a tool that allows you to make decisions today that are smart for your tomorrow, even when tomorrow is uncertain. Probability scales, from gut to numbers. How do you even begin to assign percentages to something as nebulous as a gut feeling about a new relationship or a risky career move? This is where probability scales come in. It's about taking your intuitive sense of likelihood and translating it into a numerical form, even if it's a rough estimate. Start with a simple scale from 0% to 100%. 0% means impossible, 100% means certain. Most of life's events fall somewhere in between. If you feel pretty sure something will happen, that might be a 70% chance. If it's a coin flip, it's 50%. If it's a long shot, maybe 10–20%. The key is consistency in your own estimation, not external validation. For instance, instead of saying, "I'll never get fit," you might estimate, "I have a 40% chance of sticking to a workout routine this month." This seemingly small shift compels you to examine why you chose 40% rather than 20% or 60%. What evidence led you there? This practice isn't about being perfectly accurate every time. It's about calibrating your internal barometer, making your gut feelings more disciplined and less prone to the biases that can cloud judgment. Estimating probabilities with limited data. Often, you won't have precise data to feed your probability scales or expected value calculations. This is where the art truly comes into play. You don't need a supercomputer. You need ingenuity. One powerful technique is using analogies. Has a similar situation happened to you before or to someone you know? What was the outcome then? If you're considering a new business venture, look at similar businesses that have launched. What was their success rate? If you're applying for a job, what's the general success rate for applicants with similar qualifications? Another approach is expert opinion. Consult those who have navigated similar paths. Their gut feelings, refined by years of experience, can be incredibly valuable starting points for your own estimates. Don't take their word as gospel, but use it to inform your initial probabilities. Then, you can adjust these prior probabilities as new, specific data emerges, much like we discussed with Bayesian reasoning. It's important to remember that these are estimations, not prophecies. The aim is to be roughly right, not precisely wrong. Overprecision can be a trap, leading to paralysis by analysis. A good enough estimate, applied consistently, is far more useful than a perfect one that never materializes. Avoiding overprecision. The human mind craves exactitude. We want to know the right answer, down to the decimal point. But in the messy reality of life, such precision is often illusory and counterproductive. Chasing it can lead to endless deliberation, known as analysis paralysis. Probabilistic thinking thrives on informed estimates, not perfect predictions. If you are agonizing over whether a probability is 63% or 67%, you've likely gone too far. The difference between those numbers is rarely significant enough to change your course of action. What truly matters is understanding the order of magnitude. Case study: deciding to launch the Minuteman missile. In the late 1950s, amidst the Cold War, the U.S. Air Force faced a monumental decision: whether to invest billions into developing the Minuteman Intercontinental Ballistic Missile, ICBM. This wasn't just a technical challenge. It was a strategic gamble with global implications. The stakes were astronomical. The traditional approach would have been a linear, deterministic path: design, build, test, deploy. But the reality was riddled with uncertainties. Could a solid-fuel rocket be reliably launched from an underground silo? What was the probability of a first-strike success versus failure? How quickly could it be deployed compared to Soviet capabilities? Instead of relying on wishful thinking, the project leaders, notably General Bernard Schriever, embraced probabilistic thinking. They used complex, yet fundamentally quantifiable decision tools. They mapped out decision trees for every phase of development and deployment, assigning probabilities to technical successes, cost overruns, and deployment timelines. They calculated expected values for different design choices, weighing the likelihood of performance gains against the risks of technical setbacks. For example, a new solid-fuel rocket motor presented a higher probability of initial failure compared to liquid-fueled designs. However, its expected value in terms of rapid deployment and survivability was significantly higher if successful. This quantified assessment allowed them to make calculated risks, pushing forward with innovative technologies despite the high upfront uncertainty. They weren't betting on a 100% success rate for every component, but on the overall probability of creating a reliable deterrent within a critical time frame. This probabilistic approach, combined with rapid prototyping and iterative testing, allowed the Minuteman program to move at an unprecedented pace, delivering a highly effective and reliable ICBM system years ahead of schedule. It wasn't perfect, but by quantifying uncertainties, the decision-makers transformed a massive gamble into a series of managed risks, ultimately changing the course of military strategy. Exercise, quantify your next decision. Now it's your turn to apply these ideas. Choose a decision you are currently facing, whether it's a significant life choice or a smaller, everyday dilemma. Perhaps it's whether to take on a new project at work, explore a new hobby, or even where to go on your next vacation. List possible outcomes. Brainstorm at least 3 distinct outcomes for your decision. These should represent a range, a best case, a most likely case, and a worst case. Be specific about what each outcome would entail. Assign probabilities 0–100%. For each outcome, assign a rough percentage likelihood based on what you know. This is where your gut feeling meets the numbers. If you have any relevant data or analogies, use them. Don't aim for perfection, aim for good enough. Ensure your probabilities add up to 100%. Estimate value impact. For each outcome, assign a value or impact score. This can be monetary, but it can also be on a subjective scale, e.g., -5 for very bad, 0 for neutral, +5 for very good, or even a numerical representation of happiness or regret. Think about what each outcome would truly mean to you. Calculate expected value, optional but recommended. Multiply the probability of each outcome by its value, then sum the results. This gives you a single numerical representation of the decision's overall worth, or expected return. Reflect and compare. Does the calculated expected value align with your gut feeling? If not, why? Which outcome would you prefer, and how does its probability stack up against the others? Are there any actions you can take to increase the probability of your preferred outcome, or mitigate the risk of the worst outcome? Write down your findings in a journal. The act of externalizing these thoughts, of seeing the numbers on paper, can be surprisingly clarifying. The art of quantifying. Quantifying your decisions is not about eliminating uncertainty. It's about illuminating it. It's about moving beyond vague hopes and fears to a more precise understanding of the landscape you're navigating. By using simple tools like decision matrices, expected value calculations, and probability scales, you bring a new level of rigor and insight to your choices. You learn to speak the language of likelihoods, transforming complex dilemmas into structured problems you can approach with confidence. This practice builds a sharper mind, one that sees the world not as a series of absolute pronouncements, but as a rich tapestry of probabilities waiting to be explored. It empowers you to act with intent, knowing that you've weighed the odds and prepared for whatever comes your way. Chapter 7. Probabilistic Thinking in Relationships. The human heart, in its yearning for connection, often seeks the absolute. We desire partners who are unequivocally trustworthy, friends who are unfailingly loyal, and families who are perpetually harmonious. This longing for certainty in our relationships, however, is a mirage. Just as the weather shifts and markets fluctuate, so too do the tides of human interaction. To cling to an illusion of perfect predictability in the intricate dance of relationships is to invite disappointment and misunderstanding. Probabilistic thinking offers a more profound and resilient way to navigate this most vital aspect of our lives, allowing us to build connections that are robust enough to withstand the inevitable storms of uncertainty. The illusion of certainty in relationships. From the first spark of attraction to the deepest bonds of kinship, we often operate under a subconscious assumption of certainty. We believe that if someone loves us, they will always act in a certain way. If a friendship is strong, it will never face a serious test. If a family is united, conflict is an anomaly, not a natural part of growth. This binary view, where people are either good or bad, Reliable or unreliable, loyal or disloyal, strips away the rich complexity of human nature. Consider the story of Mary Church Terrell, a prominent African-American activist and suffragist in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. She was a tireless advocate for civil rights and women's suffrage, often collaborating with both black and white activists. Her relationships within these movements were fraught with uncertainty. White suffragists, while ostensibly allies, often prioritized white women's voting rights over those of black women. Black male leaders, while fighting for racial equality, sometimes overlooked gender equality. Terrell could have adopted a binary view, labeling allies as either perfectly supportive or completely against. Instead, she operated with a probabilistic understanding. She knew the likelihood of full, uncompromised support from all quarters was low. Yet she also recognized the probability of partial, strategic alliances was high. She didn't demand absolute ideological purity. She assessed the likelihood of progress through various collaborations, understanding that even imperfect allies could contribute to a greater cause. This probabilistic lens allowed her to forge powerful, albeit sometimes challenging, relationships that advance the cause of justice, rather than becoming paralyzed by the inevitable inconsistencies of human behavior. The illusion of certainty in relationships leads to rigid expectations. When a friend cancels plans unexpectedly, or a partner expresses a differing opinion, our binary mind might jump to conclusions. They don't care about me, or we're incompatible. These absolute judgments ignore the myriad probabilities at play. A sudden emergency, a miscommunication, a temporary mood, or simply the inherent unpredictability of another autonomous human being. By embracing probabilistic thinking, we learn to see these moments not as definitive statements, but as data points, opportunities to update our understanding of the relationship's dynamic and the likelihood of various responses. Managing expectations, the probabilistic lens. One of the most profound applications of probabilistic thinking in relationships is in the management of expectations. We often set ourselves up for disappointment by expecting 100% reliability, 100% understanding, or 100% alignment from others. This is an unrealistic burden to place on any human connection. Instead, a probabilistic lens encourages us to view others' behaviors and responses as a spectrum of likelihoods. Imagine you have a friend, Alex, who is generally reliable but occasionally forgets things. If you invite Alex to a dinner party, a deterministic mind might expect Alex to arrive punctually and remember all the details. When Alex shows up 15 minutes late, having forgotten the dessert they promised, the deterministic mind might feel betrayed or disrespected. A probabilistic thinker, however, would approach the situation differently. Based on past interactions, they might estimate 70% chance Alex arrives on time and remembers the dessert. 20% chance Alex arrives a little late but remembers the dessert. 10% chance Alex arrives late and forgets the dessert. With these probabilities in mind, the probabilistic thinker isn't surprised by the 10% outcome. They might even have a backup dessert or a plan to entertain guests if Alex is delayed. Their emotional response is tempered because they anticipated a range of possibilities. This isn't about lowering your standards. It's about aligning your expectations with reality. It's about understanding that no one is 100% reliable or predictable, and that's perfectly normal. This approach was evident in the life of Florence Nightingale, the founder of modern nursing. When she arrived in Crimea in 1854 to improve conditions for wounded soldiers, she faced immense resistance from military officials and doctors. She couldn't expect immediate, full cooperation. Instead, she operated with a probabilistic understanding of human nature and institutional inertia. She knew the probability of doctors adopting her hygiene protocols overnight was low. The probability of encountering skepticism and bureaucratic roadblocks was high. Yet she also saw a non-zero probability that persistent, evidence-based advocacy, combined with undeniable results, could shift opinions. She didn't demand certainty of success. She worked within the probabilities, meticulously collecting data on mortality rates to prove her methods, thereby slowly but surely changing entrenched practices. Her probabilistic approach allowed her to manage her own expectations of what was achievable, reducing frustration and enabling her to focus on incremental, yet revolutionary, progress. Assessing trust, estimating likelihoods. Trust is the bedrock of any meaningful relationship, but how do we truly assess it? Often, we make binary judgments. I trust them completely, or I don't trust them at all. Probabilistic thinking offers a more nuanced and robust way to assess trust by estimating the likelihood of others' behaviors based on their past actions and the context of the situation. Instead of asking, "Is this person trustworthy?" a probabilistic thinker asks, "What is the likelihood this person will act in a trustworthy manner in this specific situation?" This distinction is crucial. Someone might be 95% trustworthy with your secrets, but only 60% trustworthy with deadlines. Trust is rarely an all-or-nothing proposition. It's domain-specific and context-dependent. To apply this, consider a friend, Sarah, who has a history of being late for social gatherings, but is incredibly reliable when it comes to helping you with a crisis. Scenario 1. Meeting for coffee. You might estimate a 70% chance Sarah will be 15 minutes late, a 20% chance she'll be on time, and a 10% chance she'll be more than 30 minutes late. Scenario 2. Asking Sarah to pick you up from the airport for an important flight. You might estimate a 95% chance Sarah will be on time, a 4% chance she'll be slightly late, and a 1% chance she'll forget. By assigning these probabilities, you're not judging Sarah's character in an absolute sense. You're simply making an informed estimate of her behavior in different contexts. This allows you to adjust your own actions accordingly. You might bring a book to the coffee meeting, but have a backup plan for the airport pickup. This doesn't diminish your affection for Sarah. It enhances your ability to navigate the relationship with greater understanding and less friction. This method was implicitly used by Harriet Tubman, a conductor on the Underground Railroad. She couldn't afford to make binary judgments about the people she encountered. Every person, whether a runaway slave, a sympathetic abolitionist, or a potential informant, carried a spectrum of probabilities regarding their trustworthiness. She relied on a keen ability to assess the likelihood of betrayal versus assistance, based on subtle cues, past actions of others in similar situations, and her deep understanding of human nature under duress. She didn't trust blindly, nor did she distrust universally. She constantly updated her trust probabilities with new evidence, making life-or-death decisions based on nuanced assessments of human reliability in specific, perilous contexts. Her survival, and the survival of hundreds she guided to freedom, depended on this precise, probabilistic calibration of trust. Conflict resolution, weighing outcomes. Conflict is an unavoidable part of any close relationship. When disagreements arise, our natural inclination is often to seek a definitive right or wrong answer, or to pursue a single strategy to win the argument. This binary approach often escalates conflict or leads to unresolved resentment. Probabilistic thinking offers a more effective path, weighing the probability of different approaches succeeding and understanding the range of possible outcomes. When a conflict emerges, instead of asking, "Who is right?" ask, "What is the most likely outcome if I approach this conversation in X way versus Y way?" Consider a disagreement with a family member about a shared responsibility. Approach A. Aggressive confrontation. You might estimate a 20% chance of immediate resolution if they back down, a 60% chance of escalating the argument, and a 20% chance of them becoming defensive and withdrawing. Approach B. Calm, collaborative discussion. You might estimate a 50% chance of finding a mutually agreeable solution, a 30% chance of partial resolution with ongoing discussion needed, and a 20% chance of no progress but no further escalation. By mapping out these probabilities, you can choose the approach with the highest expected value for a positive outcome, even if that outcome isn't a guaranteed win. It shifts the focus from being right to being effective. It acknowledges that even the best approach carries a probability of failure, and the worst approach carries a probability of accidental success. This perspective encourages flexibility and adaptability, vital qualities for navigating the unpredictable currents of human emotion. The Zapotec people of Oaxaca, Mexico, offer a historical example of probabilistic conflict resolution. For centuries, their communities have employed a system of communal governance and justice that emphasizes mediation and reconciliation over punitive measures. When disputes arise, they don't seek to assign absolute blame in a binary fashion. Instead, they engage in lengthy discussions, often involving elders and community leaders, to assess the probabilities of different solutions leading to lasting peace and harmony. They weigh the likelihood that a harsh punishment might lead to resentment versus the probability that a restorative approach might reintegrate an individual and prevent future conflict. This probabilistic, long-term view of conflict resolution, focused on the most probable path to communal well-being, has allowed their societies to maintain remarkable stability and cohesion for generations, even in the face of external pressures. The emotional benefits of probabilistic thinking. Beyond improved decision-making, applying probabilistic thinking to relationships offers profound emotional benefits. Reduced regret. When you make decisions about relationships based on the best available evidence and a clear understanding of probabilities, you can feel confident in your process, even if the outcome isn't ideal. If a relationship doesn't work out despite your best, probabilistically informed efforts, you can reflect, I made the best decision with the information I had, rather than being consumed by what-ifs. Increased adaptability. Life is fluid, and relationships are no exception. Probabilistic thinking fosters adaptability by preparing you for a range of scenarios. When unexpected challenges arise, you're less likely to be blindsided and more likely to pivot effectively, because you've already considered multiple paths. Greater peace of mind. By accepting that no relationship is 100% certain or perfect, you release the pressure to control every variable. You focus on influencing the probabilities within your sphere of control, rather than agonizing over what you cannot change. This shift brings a profound sense of peace and allows for a more authentic, less anxious engagement with others. Bringing it all together. Probabilistic thinking in relationships is not about becoming cold or calculating. It is about becoming more realistic, more compassionate, and ultimately, more effective in how you connect with others. It's about understanding that every interaction, every commitment, every conflict carries a range of possible outcomes, each with its own likelihood. By embracing this truth, you can manage expectations, release the burden of demanding perfection, and appreciate the inherent variability of human behavior. Assess trust. Develop a nuanced understanding of reliability, recognizing that trust is built in specific contexts and can be updated with new evidence. Resolve conflict. Approach disagreements with strategies designed to maximize the probability of positive resolution, rather than clinging to a single, rigid path. This mindset transforms relationships from fragile constructs built on impossible certainties into resilient bonds capable of weathering life's unpredictable currents. It allows you to love, trust, and engage more fully, knowing that you are navigating the beautiful, complex, and inherently probabilistic world of human connection with wisdom and grace. Exercise. Relationship probability audit. Choose one significant relationship in your life partner, close friend, family member, colleague, that currently presents a challenge or a decision point. Identify the challenge decision, Briefly describe the specific issue. E.g., my partner often forgets small requests, or I'm deciding whether to confront a friend about a recurring issue. List possible outcomes behaviors. For this specific challenge, list at least 3 distinct ways the other person might respond or the situation might unfold. Example for forgotten requests. A. They remember next time. B. They forget again but apologize sincerely. C. They forget and become defensive. Example for confrontation. A. They understand and change. B. They get upset but eventually understand. C. They get angry and the relationship is strained. Assign probabilities. Based on your past interactions, their personality, and the context, assign a rough percentage likelihood to each outcome. Ensure your percentages add up to 100%. Example for forgotten requests. A 60%, B 30%, C 10%. Example for confrontation. A 40%, B 40%, C 20%. Consider your approach. Now, think about how you plan to address this. What is your intended action or conversation strategy? Reevaluate probabilities Bayesian update. Given your chosen approach, how do the probabilities of their responses change? For instance, if you decide to use a calm, non-accusatory tone, does the probability of a positive outcome increase? Update your percentages. Reflect. How does seeing these probabilities mapped out change your feelings about the situation? Does it reduce your anxiety or frustration? Does it suggest a different approach you hadn't considered? What actions can you take to increase the likelihood of your preferred outcome or mitigate the impact of less desirable ones? Write down your findings in a journal and revisit them in a week or after the interaction occurs. Reflect on how this probabilistic approach influenced your interactions and emotions. Over time, this practice will make probabilistic thinking a natural part of how you navigate the beautiful, unpredictable world of relationships. Chapter 8: Career and Financial Decisions. Life in its rawest form is a grand game of chance. Each dawn brings a new set of probabilities, a fresh deck of cards to be dealt. And nowhere is this truth more starkly revealed than in the realms of your career and your coin. We often stumble into these critical arenas armed with a gambler's naive bravado, convinced of a singular, destined outcome, or paralyzed by a skeptic's fear, clinging to a certainty that simply does not exist. This dualistic view, this black and white lens, blinds us to the rich spectrum of possibilities that truly define our professional and financial journeys. Probabilistic thinking, then, offers a third path, a wiser, more discerning approach. It is the compass that guides you through the fog of uncertainty, allowing you to discern patterns, weigh unseen forces, and make decisions with a grounded confidence, not a desperate hope. This chapter is your invitation to apply this liberating mindset to the very pillars of your material existence, your calling and your wealth. Here, you will learn to transform the way you assess risk, seize fleeting opportunities, and ultimately forge a life of deeper purpose and enduring stability. The illusion of the safe bet. The modern world often peddles the myth of the safe bet. Go to college, get a steady job, save diligently, invest in blue-chip stocks, and your future is assured. This narrative, while comforting in its simplicity, is a relic of a bygone era. Life, especially in the 21st century, is far more dynamic, more volatile, and less predictable than our conditioning often suggests. The job once deemed secure can vanish overnight. Markets once thought stable can buckle under unseen pressures. The entrepreneurial dream, once a long shot, can become a burgeoning reality. To cling to an absolute notion of safety is to misunderstand the very nature of existence. It is to mistake a single thread for an unbreakable rope. Consider the prevailing wisdom of yesteryear, particularly in the post-war industrial age. A single company, a single career ladder, a single pension, these were the pillars of perceived stability. Yet even then, the world was quietly shifting. Think of the textile workers in New England in the mid-20th century. For generations, the mills offered a seemingly secure livelihood. But technological advancements and global economic shifts, probabilities barely on the horizon for many, gradually eroded that certainty. Those who understood the subtle shifts, who saw the gathering clouds of change, however faint, began to diversify their skills, explore new industries, or migrate to burgeoning economic centers. They were, in essence, thinking probabilistically, even if unknowingly, assessing the declining odds of their traditional path and seeking new ventures. Today, this illusion of the safe bet is even more perilous. Automation, global competition, rapid technological disruption, and shifting consumer behaviors mean that career paths are less linear, and financial landscapes are in constant flux. To believe in a guaranteed outcome is to deny the very forces that shape our world. Instead, we must cultivate the ability to estimate the likelihoods of various futures, not to predict them with pinpoint accuracy, but to prepare for a spectrum of possibilities. Balancing risk and reward in career choices. Every career decision is a dance with probability. Choosing between a stable corporate role and a nascent startup, transitioning industries, or embarking on a passion project, each path carries its own unique set of risks and potential rewards. The binary mind sees only two doors, success or failure. The probabilistic thinker sees 100 doors, each with a different probability of opening to a desired outcome, and each with a variable cost of entry. Let's dissect this with a modern example. Imagine Sarah, a talented software engineer. She has an offer from a large, established tech company, a stable salary, clear promotion path, excellent benefits. Simultaneously, a promising early-stage startup has offered her a role with a lower salary, but significant equity and the promise of groundbreaking work. A binary thinker might agonizingly choose one or the other, framing it as the right choice or the wrong choice. Sarah, however, approaches this with a probabilistic lens. Stable corporate role. She estimates a 90% chance of consistent employment for the next 5 years, a 70% chance of steady promotions, and a 50% chance of significant innovation or personal impact. The financial reward is predictable, with a low probability of extreme upside but an even lower probability of catastrophic loss. Startup role. She estimates a 15% chance of the company achieving unicorn status, massive financial upside, a 40% chance of moderate success, decent return on equity, valuable experience, a 30% chance of the company failing within 2 years, significant financial loss, but still valuable experience, and a 15% chance of a quick acquisition, moderate upside. By assigning these probabilities, Sarah doesn't eliminate the risk, but she quantifies it. She recognizes that the safe job is not 100% secure, and the risky startup isn't 100% doomed. This framework allows her to move beyond emotional biases and make a decision based on a more realistic assessment of the odds. Perhaps she values impact and the potential for a large upside more than absolute certainty, making the startup, despite its lower probability of grand success, the more attractive choice, given its expected value. Or perhaps her life circumstances necessitate stability, making the corporate role the better probabilistic choice for her. This is not about cold calculation alone. It's about making a conscious bet. You balance your current needs, your appetite for risk, and your long-term aspirations against the estimated likelihoods. It's about knowing that every choice, even the seemingly secure one, involves a wager. Diversifying your financial bets. The concept of not putting all your eggs in one basket is as old as trade itself. In finance, this translates to diversification. A probabilistic mindset fundamentally grasps that future returns are not guaranteed, but are instead a spectrum of probabilities. To invest everything in a single stock, a single asset class, or even a single market is to assume a 100% certainty of a desired outcome, a folly that history repeatedly disproves. Consider the Dutch tulip mania of the 17th century, often cited as one of the first recorded speculative bubbles. Fortunes were staked and lost on the assumption that tulip bulb prices would certainly continue to rise. Those who understood that the fever pitch of prices was unsustainable, who viewed the soaring value as a low probability, high-risk anomaly, diversified their assets or exited the market. They understood that even a seemingly booming asset carried a non-zero probability of collapse. In more recent times, we can look to the dot-com bubble of the late 1990s. Investors poured money into internet companies, many with unproven business models, under the belief that the internet changes everything and returns were inevitable. While indeed the internet changed everything, many individual companies failed. Those who diversified their portfolios, spreading their investments across various sectors, industries, and geographies, weathered the eventual market correction far better than those who went all in on a handful of speculative tech stocks. They operated on the understanding that even a revolutionary trend carries a probabilistic distribution of success among its players. Diversifying your financial bets means asset allocation, spreading your investments across different types of assets, such as stocks, bonds, real estate, and commodities. Each asset class reacts differently to economic conditions, meaning that when one might be performing poorly, another could be thriving. Geographic diversification, investing in markets beyond your home country. Global economies have different growth cycles and risk factors. Sector diversification, avoiding excessive concentration in a single industry, as even a robust sector can face headwinds. Time diversification, dollar cost averaging, investing a fixed amount regularly, regardless of market fluctuations. This smooths out the purchase price over time and reduces the risk of investing a large sum at an unfavorable peak. Each of these strategies is built upon the probabilistic understanding that predicting the absolute winner or the precise market timing is impossible. Instead, you position yourself to capture a broad range of probable returns while mitigating the impact of any single negative outcome. It's an acknowledgement that the future is a spread of possibilities, and your strategy should reflect that reality. Avoiding the all-in mentality. The all-in mentality, whether in poker or in life, is the antithesis of probabilistic thinking. It is the seductive siren call of absolute conviction, the belief that a single, audacious move will guarantee triumph. While bold action often brings rewards, when it's untempered by an understanding of probabilities, it becomes reckless. Spreading your bets, on the other hand, is a hallmark of resilience. It ensures that a single misstep does not unravel your entire endeavor. This applies not just to financial investments but to career decisions, project planning, and even personal development. Consider a young artist, driven by an unshakable belief in their unique vision. They might pour all their resources, time, and energy into a single, ambitious project, convinced it will be their masterpiece that changes the world. While admirable, this all-in approach leaves them vulnerable. What if the project doesn't resonate with audiences? What if funding falls through? A probabilistic artist, equally passionate, might instead dedicate a significant portion of their time to the grand project, but also nurture smaller, more experimental works, cultivate multiple income streams, teaching, commissions, and network widely. They understand that the probability of a single masterpiece launching their career to stardom is low, but the probability of a combination of efforts building a sustainable career is much higher. A fascinating historical parallel lies in the strategic planning of early polar expeditions. Many ill-fated expeditions adopted an all-in approach, meticulously planning a single route, relying on a single supply chain, and assuming ideal conditions. When the unpredictable realities of the Arctic or Antarctic set in, unforeseen ice movements, blizzards, dwindling supplies, these expeditions often collapsed catastrophically. Contrast this with Roald Amundson's approach to the South Pole. While he was audacious, his planning was deeply probabilistic. He prepared for a range of possibilities. Diversified transportation. He didn't rely solely on dogs. He understood the probabilities of different terrains and conditions requiring skis and even man-hauling. Redundant supplies. His caches were meticulously placed and often contained more than necessary, accounting for the probability of loss or miscalculation. Flexible routes. While having a primary route, he had alternatives in mind, adjusting based on real-time conditions. Testing and iteration. He engaged in extensive practice runs and adapted his equipment and strategies based on the probabilistic feedback of these tests. Amundsen's success was not due to a single all-in bet on a perfect plan, but to a series of calculated, diversified bets that accounted for the high probabilities of harsh, unpredictable conditions. This layered approach, this spreading of bets, is what builds true resilience. It's the understanding that while you pursue your primary objective, you must simultaneously mitigate the probabilities of failure by having contingencies, alternative paths, and diversified efforts. Tools for probabilistic decision-making. Bringing probabilistic thinking into your career and financial decisions doesn't require advanced mathematics. It requires a shift in perspective and the application of simple, yet powerful tools. We've touched on these in previous chapters, but here, we'll ground them in the context of your professional and financial life. Decision matrices. Imagine you are weighing several job offers. A decision matrix allows you to list each offer your options, and then evaluate them against a set of criteria that matter to you: salary, growth potential, work-life balance, cultural fit. For each criterion, you can assign a weight, e.g., salary is 40% important, cultural fit is 20%. Then you rate each job offer against each criterion. This helps you visualize trade-offs and see which option scores highest based on your weighted priorities. While not explicitly probabilistic on its own, it sets the stage by structuring your thinking about multiple variables and their perceived value. Expected value calculations. This is where the magic of probability truly comes into play. As you learned, expected value helps you figure out the average outcome of a decision if you were to repeat it many times. In career, consider a new training program that costs money and time. Outcome 1. High promotion likelihood, e.g., 60% chance, leading to an extra $10,000 a year for 5 years equals $50,000 benefit. Outcome 2. Moderate skill improvement, e.g., 30% chance, leading to $2,000 a year extra for 5 years equals $10,000 benefit. Outcome 3. No significant impact, e.g., 10% chance, leading to $0 benefit. Expected value equals 0.6 asterisk $50,000 plus dollars 30 cents asterisk $10,000 plus 0.1 asterisk $0 equals $30,000 plus $3,000 plus $0 equals $33,000. If the training costs $5,000, its expected value is clearly positive, suggesting it's a good bet. In finance, evaluating an investment. Outcome A. Market boom, 40% chance of plus 20% return. Outcome B. Stable growth, 50% chance of plus 5% return. Outcome C. Recession, 10% chance of minus 10% return. Expected return equals 0.4 asterisk 0.2 plus 0.5 asterisk 0.05 plus 0.1 asterisk minus 0.1 equals 0.08 plus 0.025 0.01 equals 0.095 or 9.5%. This calculation provides a single number that encapsulates the blend of probabilities and potential outcomes, guiding your investment decisions. Probability scales 0% to 100%. This simple tool helps you move away from binary yes-no thinking. When you're evaluating a career move, don't just think, will I succeed? Instead, ask, What's the probability I get that promotion, e.g., 75%? What's the probability the startup succeeds, e.g., 20%? What's the probability this new investment yields a positive return, e.g., 65%? Writing these down forces you to calibrate your intuition with whatever evidence you possess. Are similar startups successful? How often do people in your role get promoted? What does historical data say about this type of investment? Analogies and base rates. When data is limited, use what you know. If you're considering launching a new online course, look at the success rates of similar courses' base rates. If a friend launched a successful venture in a similar niche, what were the probabilities they faced? Analogy. These aren't perfect predictors, but they provide a more grounded estimate than pure optimism or pessimism. Case study: The Entrepreneur's Dilemma. Let's delve into the story of May, a young architect in the bustling city of Singapore. May had a stable job at a renowned firm, drawing a comfortable salary. Yet her heart yearned for something more: to design sustainable, affordable housing for the city's burgeoning middle class. This was her dream, but it meant leaving the perceived safety of her current role and launching her own practice, a notoriously difficult venture. Her colleagues and family, operating from a binary mindset, saw two paths: safe job or risky failure. Many urged her to stay, emphasizing the 99% certainty of her current paycheck against the near 100% chance of a startup failing. May, however, had been cultivating a probabilistic mindset. She didn't ignore the risks, she quantified them. Her current job: she estimated an 80% chance of continued stability for the next 5 years. However, she also saw a 50% chance of burnout due to the relentless corporate grind, and a 10% chance of the firm laying off staff during an economic downturn, something she hadn't considered before applying a probabilistic lens. The reward was stable, but the potential for significant impact or personal fulfillment was low. Launching her own firm, this was the bigger unknown. May broke down the probabilities. Success: 5 years, profitable, making an impact. She estimated a 20% chance. This wasn't high, but it wasn't zero. She based this on research into other successful small, sustainable architecture firms, acknowledging the high failure rate of startups generally. Moderate success: breaking even, some projects, building a reputation. She estimated a 35% chance. This meant she might not get rich, but she'd be doing meaningful work. Failure: firm closes within 2 years, significant financial loss but valuable learning. She estimated a 45% chance. This was the uncomfortable truth, but by acknowledging it, she could plan for it. May also considered the expected value of each path, not just in financial terms, but in terms of personal fulfillment and impact. She assigned a happiness score to each outcome. Current job: 0.8 * 70 points for stability plus 0.5 points for burnout plus 0.1 - 50 points for layoff equals 56. 15.5 equals 36 points. New firm: 0.2 * 100 points for success plus 0.35 * 60 points for moderate success plus 0.45 - 40 points for failure equals 20 plus 21. 18 equals 23 points. Initially, the safe job seemed to yield a higher expected happiness, but May didn't stop there. She began to ask, what can I do to shift these probabilities? Mitigating failure: to reduce the 45% probability of failure for her firm, she diversified her early bets. Instead of going all in immediately, she started by taking on small, pro bono sustainable design projects on the side while still employed. This allowed her to test the market, build a portfolio, and refine her approach with minimal financial risk. This was her hedging strategy. Built a buffer: she saved enough money to cover 6 months of living expenses, accounting for the high probability of inconsistent income during the startup phase. Networked extensively: She attended industry events, connecting with potential clients and collaborators, aiming to increase her chance of success by building a pipeline. Through these actions, she actively worked to improve the probabilities of her entrepreneurial venture. After a year of diligent side work and savings, she reassessed. Her estimated probability of success for her own firm had risen to 30% and moderate success to 40%, while failure had dropped to 30%. This recalibration shifted her expected happiness score for the new firm above her old job. May eventually launched her firm. It wasn't an overnight success, and she faced countless setbacks. Projects fell through a 25% probability she had accounted for. Financial pressures mounted a 40% probability. But because she had thought probabilistically, she wasn't blindsided. Each setback was not a definitive failure but a data point, an opportunity to adjust her strategy, update her probabilities, and iterate. Her firm slowly gained traction, securing a few impactful projects. While she hasn't achieved unicorn status, she is profitable, making a tangible difference and deeply fulfilled. May's story is not about eliminating risk, but about understanding it, quantifying it, and actively influencing the probabilities in her favor. She didn't chase certainty. She embraced the art of maybe, transforming her career from a leap of faith into a calculated, resilient journey. Exercise. Evaluate your own decision. Now it is your turn to apply these principles. Think of a significant career or financial decision you are currently facing. It could be changing jobs, making a large investment, starting a side hustle, or even deciding whether to pursue further education. Take a deep breath. Instead of letting anxiety cloud your judgment or rushing into a decision based on gut instinct, let's unpack it with the clarity of probabilistic thinking. Identify the decision. Clearly state the decision you are contemplating. Example, should I accept the new job offer at Company X or stay at Company Y? List possible outcomes. For each path within your decision, identify at least 3 distinct outcomes: a best case, a middle ground, and a worst case scenario. Be specific. For Company X new job. Best case, rapid promotion, high job satisfaction, significant salary increase within 2 years. Middle ground, stable performance, decent salary, some learning but not a significant leap. Worst case, poor cultural fit, minimal growth, potential layoff within a year. For Company Y current job. Best case, promotion with a good raise, continued comfort, strong relationships. Middle ground, maintain current status, steady income but limited new challenges. Worst case, stagnation, burnout, potential for redundancy if the company restructures. Assign probabilities. For each of these outcomes, assign a rough percentage likelihood from 0% to 100%. This is not about perfect prediction, but about disciplined estimation. Use any evidence you can gather. Past experience. Have you faced similar situations? Research. What are the industry trends? What do reviews say about Company X's culture? What's Company Y's recent performance? Expert opinions. Talk to mentors, colleagues, or industry insiders. Analogies. Base rates. What's the general success rate for similar career changes or investments? Example probabilities for Company X new job. Best case, 25%, middle ground, 60%, worst case, 15%. Sum must be 100%. Example probabilities for Company Y current job. Best case, 30%, middle ground, 60%, worst case, 10%. Sum must be 100%. Assess impact value. For each outcome, consider its value or impact. This can be financial, a dollar amount; emotional, a happiness score; professional, skill development, reputation, or a combination. Quantify it even if roughly. Example for Company X new job. Best case, plus $50,000 in income, high satisfaction plus 810. Middle ground, plus $5,000 in income, moderate satisfaction plus 510. Worst case, $10,000 lost income, job search costs, low satisfaction -710. Calculate expected value, optional but recommended. Multiply the probability of each outcome by its estimated impact, then sum them up for each decision path. This gives you a weighted average of what you can expect from each choice. Example for Company X, based on happiness score scale. 0.25*8 plus 0.6*5 plus 0.15 equals 2 plus 3 1.05 equals 3.95. Expected happiness score for Company X. Do the same for Company Y. Diversify your approach, mitigate risks. Based on your probabilities, brainstorm concrete actions you can take to increase the probability of the best-case scenario, e.g., for new job, proactively network, seek early feedback. Mitigate the impact or probability of the worst-case scenario, e.g., for new job, maintain professional contacts, update resume regularly, build a financial buffer. Test on a smaller scale. Can you try a mini version of your decision before committing fully? E.g., for a side hustle, start small before quitting your main job. Reflect and refine. How does seeing these probabilities mapped out change your perspective? Does the expected value align with your intuition, or does it challenge it? If it challenges it, what assumptions might you need to re-examine? Which actions will you commit to taking to influence the probabilities? Write down your findings in a journal or a simple spreadsheet. Revisit them in a month or after a significant event related to your decision. Did new evidence emerge? How did it change your probabilities? This iterative practice of estimating, acting, and updating is the heart of living probabilistically. The probabilistic path forward. The world of career and finance will always remain a realm of inherent uncertainty. There are no crystal balls, no guaranteed returns, and no completely safe bets. But by embracing probabilistic thinking, you transform from a passive passenger, hopping for the best, into an active navigator, equipped with a powerful lens to see beyond the immediate horizon. You learn to make informed wagers, not blind gambles. You learn to diversify your efforts, whether in investments or skill development, creating a resilient portfolio against unforeseen shocks. You recognize that all-in bets, while occasionally yielding spectacular rewards, often carry catastrophic probabilities of ruin. This mindset frees you from the crippling anxiety of needing certainty. It allows you to move forward with clarity, knowing that you have assessed the landscape, calibrated your expectations, and prepared for a spectrum of possible outcomes. Each career move, each financial decision becomes a calculated step, not a desperate leap. It's a path that builds not just wealth and professional success, but also a profound sense of inner stability, knowing you are playing the long game with wisdom and a clear understanding of the beautiful, unpredictable odds. Chapter 9: Health and Well-Being. Life's most precious asset, our very well-being, often feels like a realm where certainty is not just desired but demanded. When we face a health decision, the impulse is to seek an absolute answer. Is this treatment the cure? Will this diet definitely make me healthier? Will this symptom for sure lead to something dire? Yet, the human body and the pathways of healing are a vast, intricate dance of possibilities, not rigid declarations. To navigate this terrain with grace and wisdom, we must shed the illusion of certainty and embrace the nuanced lens of probabilistic thinking. Consider for a moment how much of our health is a game of odds. A doctor offers a diagnosis not as a decree, but as the most probable explanation based on available evidence. A lifestyle choice like daily exercise doesn't guarantee immortality, but it significantly alters the likelihood of a vibrant future. Anxiety, that unwelcome guest, often thrives on the pursuit of certain outcomes in an uncertain world. This chapter will illuminate how a probabilistic mindset, a quiet revolution in your inner world, can empower you to make sharper health choices, manage the pervasive anxieties of uncertainty, and cultivate a deeper, more resilient sense of well-being. The shifting sands of medical decisions. In the chambers of modern medicine, from the diagnostic lab to the operating room, certainty is a phantom. Doctors, despite their profound knowledge, grapple with probabilities every waking moment. When a patient presents with a constellation of symptoms, a physician doesn't declare a single ailment with absolute conviction. Instead, they consider a spectrum of possibilities, each with a varying degree of likelihood. Imagine a medical scenario. A person experiences persistent fatigue and general malaise. A doctor might consider several potential diagnoses: a viral infection, a nutrient deficiency, a chronic condition, or even something less common. Each of these possibilities carries a certain prior probability, a base rate of how often it occurs in the general population or in similar cases. Then, as new evidence emerges, blood test results, a physical examination, the patient's history, these probabilities are updated. The doctor isn't looking for a yes or no answer, but rather refining the likelihoods, narrowing the field until one diagnosis becomes most probable. This is Bayesian reasoning in action, a quiet symphony of updating beliefs with new information, allowing for nuanced, informed decisions that move beyond simple guesswork. This probabilistic dance extends to treatment. A cancer patient might be presented with several options: surgery, chemotherapy, radiation, or a combination. Each comes with its own set of risks, benefits, and probabilities of success or side effects. One treatment might offer an 80% chance of remission, but a 30% chance of severe fatigue. Another might have a 60% chance of remission with fewer side effects. A deterministic mind might fixate on the 80% and ignore the accompanying risk, or be paralyzed by the absence of a 100% guarantee. A probabilistic mind, however, weighs these likelihoods, understands the trade-offs, and chooses the path that aligns best with their values and desired quality of life, accepting that no choice comes without its inherent uncertainties. A poignant example of this comes from the life of Mary Lasker, a remarkable American health activist of the 20th century. Lasker, far from a medical professional, revolutionized medical research funding. She didn't seek certainty in breakthroughs, which are, by their nature, unpredictable. Instead, she invested her considerable influence and resources probabilistically. She understood that by supporting a broad range of research initiatives, even those with a low individual probability of success, the overall probability of a major discovery increased. She lobbied tirelessly for increased government funding for the National Institutes of Health, arguing that a robust and diversified portfolio of research would yield results, even if specific projects failed. Her approach was not a gamble on a single horse, but a strategic distribution of resources across a field of promising, albeit uncertain, contenders. This probabilistic investment in research ultimately led to monumental advancements in cancer treatment and disease prevention, proving that even in the face of profound medical uncertainties, a probabilistic strategy can yield immense rewards. Crafting a healthy life, lifestyle and long-term probabilities. Beyond the doctor's office, our daily lifestyle choices are also a constant interplay of probabilities, though we rarely frame them as such. Every decision about what we eat, how much we move, or how we manage stress doesn't guarantee a specific outcome, but it certainly shifts the long-term odds in our favor or against us. Consider the simple act of choosing to walk daily. This doesn't ensure you'll never face a heart condition, but it significantly reduces the probability of cardiovascular disease over decades. Conversely, a diet rich in processed foods doesn't condemn you to immediate illness, but it increases the likelihood of chronic conditions emerging over time. These are not immediate cause-and-effect relationships, but rather subtle, cumulative shifts in the probabilistic landscape of our health. Take the work of Ancel Keys, the American scientist who, in the mid-20th century, championed the link between diet and heart disease. Keyes initiated the groundbreaking 7-countries study, observing dietary habits and health outcomes across diverse populations. He wasn't looking for a single, deterministic cause of heart disease, but rather probabilistic associations. He hypothesized that populations consuming higher amounts of saturated fats would have a greater likelihood of heart disease. His meticulous collection of data and subsequent analysis didn't offer absolute proofs, but compelling probabilities that shaped modern dietary guidelines worldwide. He didn't say, "Eat this, and you'll never get heart disease," but rather, "Eating this reduces your probability of heart disease significantly." This subtle yet profound distinction lies at the heart of probabilistic health choices. When we approach lifestyle choices with this mindset, we move beyond the trap of perfectionism. A missed workout doesn't negate all past efforts. It's a data point, a slight dip in the probability curve that can be corrected with the next effort. A dietary indulgence isn't a catastrophic failure. It's a temporary blip that can be rebalanced by subsequent healthy choices. This understanding reduces the crushing pressure to be perfect and fosters a more sustainable, resilient approach to well-being. It allows us to iterate, adjust, and continue to shift the odds in our favor over the long game of life. The mind's landscape, mental health and managing anxiety. Perhaps nowhere is probabilistic thinking more liberating than in the realm of mental well-being, especially when grappling with anxiety. Anxiety, at its core, is often a battle against uncertainty, a desperate craving for definitive answers where none exist. We ruminate on worst-case scenarios, giving them a false certainty in our minds, and become paralyzed by the terrifying what-ifs. Probabilistic thinking offers a powerful antidote. Instead of asking, "Will this bad thing happen?" it encourages us to ask, "How likely is this bad thing to happen, and what can I control?" This shift in focus is profound. When we assign a rough probability to our fears, say, a 5% chance of that embarrassing presentation leading to career ruin, or a 1% chance of a minor ache being a grave illness, we begin to drain them of their overwhelming power. It doesn't eliminate the fear entirely, but it puts it in its proper perspective, transforming it from a monstrous certainty into a manageable likelihood. Consider the pioneering work of Elisabeth Kubler-Ross, a Swiss-American psychiatrist who revolutionized the understanding of grief and dying. While not explicitly framed in probabilistic terms, her work implicitly embraced the uncertainty of human experience. She didn't offer a deterministic path through grief, but rather identified stages that were likely to occur, acknowledging that individuals would move through them in their own unique order and pace. Her approach allowed patients and their families to navigate the deeply uncertain landscape of mortality with a greater sense of understanding and less overwhelming anxiety, knowing that their experiences, however varied, were within a probable human spectrum. For our own mental health, embracing probabilistic thinking means recognizing that we cannot control every external event, nor can we predict every future outcome. But we can control our responses, our preparation, and our focus. Instead of agonizing over the 1% chance of a severe negative event, we can invest our energy in the 99% of controllable factors that can improve our present circumstances and nudge the probabilities in a more favorable direction. This might mean scenario planning for anxiety. Instead of avoiding a feared situation, create a decision tree in your mind or on paper. What's the worst that could realistically happen? What's the most likely outcome? What's the best? Assign rough probabilities. Often, the worst-case scenario, once quantified, appears far less likely than our anxious minds convince us it is. Focusing on controllables. When overwhelmed by health concerns, identify what is within your sphere of influence. Can you seek a second opinion? Can you adjust your diet? Can you practice mindfulness? By focusing on actions with a higher probability of positive impact, you shift from passive worry to empowered action. Treating setbacks as data, a flare-up of an old ailment, a failed attempt to stick to a new routine, these are not personal failings. They are data points. They inform you, update your understanding, and allow you to refine your approach, much like a scientist refining an experiment. This iterative process prevents discouragement from becoming a permanent state and builds mental resilience. Practical steps for probabilistic health choices. To integrate this way of thinking into your daily health and well-being, consider these practical steps. Weighing medical decisions. Before making a significant medical decision, ask your healthcare provider not just, "What should I do?" but "What are the probabilities of success for each option? What are the likelihoods of side effects? What is the expected value of this treatment versus another?" This transforms a directive into a dialogue, empowering you to make informed choices. Lifestyle probabilities. When setting health goals, e.g., fitness, nutrition, frame them probabilistically. Instead of "I will lose 20 pounds, try, "I have a 70% chance of losing 10-15 pounds if I consistently track my intake and exercise 4 times a week." This sets realistic expectations and allows for flexibility. Anxiety assessment. When anxiety strikes, pause, identify the specific fear. Then, on a scale of 0% to 100%, estimate the actual probability of that fear coming true. What evidence supports that high or low probability? This simple act of quantification often deflates the intensity of the fear. Exercise. Assessing a health-related decision. Choose a health-related decision you're currently facing, big or small. Perhaps it's starting a new diet, committing to a workout routine, or deciding whether to seek a specialist for a persistent symptom. Identify the decision. Clearly state the health decision. List possible outcomes. Beyond just success or failure, brainstorm at least 3 realistic outcomes. For a new diet, this could be: Outcome A, most probable success. Lose 5-10 pounds, feel more energetic, sustain new eating habits long-term. Outcome B, partial success maintenance. Lose 2-3 pounds, struggle with consistency but maintain current weight. Outcome C, setback reversion. Gain weight, feel discouraged, abandon the diet within weeks. Estimate probabilities. Assign a rough percentage likelihood to each outcome. Be honest with yourself. E.g., A, 60%, B, 30%, C, 10%. What evidence from your past attempts, current life circumstances, or available resources informs these estimates? Assess potential benefits costs. For each outcome, briefly note the potential benefits, e.g., improved mood, better sleep, reduced risk of disease, or costs, e.g., frustration, financial outlay, time commitment. Identify controllable actions. For each outcome, list 1 or 2 specific actions you can take to increase the probability of the desired outcome or mitigate the negative impact of an undesirable one. For outcome C, perhaps identifying specific triggers for unhealthy eating and having a plan to address them. Reflect on this exercise. Did mapping out the probabilities reduce your anxiety about the decision? Did it reveal any new insights or actions you hadn't considered? This quiet introspection, this dance with likelihoods, is the essence of making wiser health choices in an unpredictable world. The realm of health and well-being, often cloaked in the false promise of certainty, truly flourishes under the light of probabilistic thinking. By accepting that no health choice guarantees a perfect outcome, you release the burden of perfectionism and open yourself to the power of continuous adjustment. A health setback, seen through this lens, is not a failure, but merely a data point, an invitation to refine your approach. This mindset fosters a profound resilience, allowing you to adapt to life's inevitable curveballs rather than being undone by them. It reduces regret, for you know you've made the best decision given the available probabilities, and it cultivates a deep peace of mind, allowing you to focus on what you can influence rather than agonizing over what you cannot. Health is not a destination, but a journey, and probabilistic thinking provides the compass to navigate its unpredictable, yet beautiful terrain. Chapter 10. Building a Probabilistic Mindset. The journey of transformation, much like the slow, persistent erosion of stone by water, is rarely marked by sudden, grand shifts. Instead, it is a gradual accumulation of small, deliberate acts. To truly embody probabilistic thinking, to weave its principles into the very fabric of your being, requires more than intellectual understanding. It demands consistent, daily engagement. This chapter is your guide to forging that habit, transforming a powerful concept into an instinctive way of living. The power of daily practices. A mindset is not simply adopted, it is built through ritual. Just as a craftsman sharpens his tools each morning, you must hone your probabilistic lens with regular practice. These daily disciplines are not burdens, but rather pathways to a clearer, more adaptable existence. They are the quiet, often unseen, efforts that distinguish mastery from fleeting interest. Journaling probabilities. The act of writing is an act of clarity. Too often our thoughts swirl, vague and unexamined. When you begin to journal your probabilities, you force precision upon the amorphous. For any significant decision, or even a minor one, dedicate a few lines. What outcome do you anticipate? Assign it a percentage, not to be perfectly accurate, but to reveal your underlying assumptions. Why that number? What evidence, however scant, supports it? This isn't a test of your predictive power, but of your awareness. Over time, these entries become a rich tapestry, a chronicle of your mind's evolution. You'll begin to notice patterns in your initial estimates, areas where you consistently overestimate or underestimate, revealing biases you never knew you held. This practice, simple yet profound, trains your brain to see the world not in certainties, but in a spectrum of likelihoods. Consider the meticulous records of Captain James Cook, whose voyages of discovery in the 18th century transformed global navigation. He didn't merely sail, he charted. He recorded weather patterns, currents, and land sightings with a precision that allowed future navigators to make informed estimates, improving the probabilities of safe passage. His detailed logs were, in a sense, a probability journal for the vast, uncertain oceans. Your journal serves a similar purpose, charting the unpredictable waters of your own life. Reviewing decisions. The true value of a decision is not judged solely by its outcome, but by the quality of the thinking that preceded it. Once a decision has played out, return to your journal. Compare your initial probability estimate with what actually transpired. Did the expected 70% chance of success materialize? If not, what new information emerged? What factors did you overlook? This retrospective analysis is not about dwelling on mistakes or patting yourself on the back, but about extracting wisdom. Every outcome, whether favorable or not, is a piece of data. It's a signal, telling you something about the world, about your assumptions, and about your calibration. This continuous feedback loop refines your internal models, sharpening your intuitive grasp of probabilities. You learn to discern the subtle shifts in the currents of life, making your future estimations more robust. Seeking feedback. Your internal landscape, no matter how diligently explored through journaling, has blind spots. To gain a truly rounded perspective, you must actively solicit external input. After making a decision, or even when you're wrestling with one, seek out trusted confidants, mentors, or even colleagues who hold different viewpoints. Ask them for their assessment of the situation, their take on the probabilities involved, and what evidence they would consider. This isn't about surrendering your judgment, but about enriching it. Their insights might reveal overlooked risks, introduce new possibilities, or challenge your deeply held, unexamined assumptions. Just as a skilled chess player considers their opponent's moves, a probabilistic thinker considers the perspectives of others, integrating them into their evolving understanding of the likelihoods at play. Overcoming setbacks, failures as data points. The human mind, in its desire for order, often labels anything less than perfect success as a failure, a final, damning verdict. This binary thinking is perhaps the greatest impediment to cultivating a probabilistic mindset. In the probabilistic world, There are no true failures, only outcomes that deviate from expectations, providing invaluable data. Consider the early attempts at developing penicillin. Alexander Fleming's initial discovery in 1928 was a fortunate accident, but the antibiotic itself was unstable and difficult to produce. Many pharmaceutical companies dismissed it as impractical. Yet, a small team led by Howard Florey and Ernst Chain at Oxford, funded by a modest wartime grant, persisted through numerous setbacks. Their early efforts to purify and stabilize penicillin yielded inconsistent results, often leading to insufficient quantities for human trials. A deterministic mind might have abandoned the project after these failures. But Florey and Chain, implicitly embracing a probabilistic approach, treated each suboptimal outcome not as a dead end, but as a data point. Each failed purification, each unstable batch, provided critical information, narrowing the probability space of effective methods and guiding their iterative refinements. Their persistence, fueled by the understanding that each failure was simply a piece of the puzzle, eventually led to the mass production of penicillin, saving countless lives during World War II and beyond. This historical triumph illustrates a crucial principle. Every outcome, whether successful or unsuccessful in the conventional sense, is information. If your business venture stumbles, it's not a declaration of your inadequacy, but data about market demand, operational efficiency, or competitive pressures. If a relationship hits a rough patch, it's not an indictment of your character, but data about communication patterns or mismatched expectations. By reframing setbacks as data points, you disarm their emotional power and transform them into opportunities for learning and adaptation. You cease to be a victim of circumstance and become a scientist of your own life, perpetually experimenting, observing, and refining your approach. The power of iteration. Life is not a one-shot game. It is a continuous, unfolding sequence of decisions. The probabilistic mindset thrives on iteration, the systematic process of refining your approach based on continuous feedback. It is the antithesis of rigidity, an embrace of dynamic adaptation. Imagine the iterative improvements made to early aircraft. The Wright brothers' initial flyer, a flimsy contraption of wood and fabric, was far from perfect. Early flights were short, often ending in bumpy landings. Yet they didn't see these as failures but as crucial data. Each flight, each minor crash, provided feedback on aerodynamics, control surfaces, and engine performance. They would adjust the wing shape, modify the rudder, or fine-tune the engine, and then test again. This continuous cycle of hypothesize, test, observe, and refine, fueled by a deep understanding of what worked and what didn't, the probabilities of certain design elements yielding desired outcomes, ultimately led to more stable, controllable aircraft. The modern jetliner is not a singular invention, but the cumulative result of countless iterations, each built upon the probabilistic lessons learned from its predecessors. In your own life, iteration allows you to approach goals and challenges with a nimble spirit. If you're working on improving your time management, for example, a deterministic approach might be to rigidly stick to a single schedule, becoming frustrated if it falters. A probabilistic approach, however, treats your schedule as a hypothesis. You might estimate a 70% chance of successfully completing all tasks on a given day with your current plan. If you consistently find yourself falling short, that's data. You then iterate. Perhaps you refine your estimates for how long tasks truly take, block out smaller, more focused work periods, or build in buffers for unexpected interruptions. You track your adherence, noting what works and what doesn't, continuously adjusting your system based on the actual outcomes. Over time, your time management becomes less about brute force adherence and more about an intelligently adaptive process, finely tuned to your own rhythms and the unpredictable demands of your day. Integrating probabilistic thinking into your identity. To truly live a probabilistic life, This way of thinking must move beyond a mere tool and become an intrinsic part of who you are. It is a shift from asking "what if" with trepidation to asking "what's the likelihood" with curious anticipation. It's the calm acceptance that the future is a tapestry of probabilities, not a rigid blueprint. This integration manifests as a default skepticism of certainty. You develop an antenna for absolute statements, pausing to question the hidden assumptions. An eagerness for new information. Every new piece of evidence is welcomed, not as a challenge to your existing beliefs, but as an opportunity to refine them. A comfort with ambiguity. The maybe no longer feels like a void, but a fertile ground for possibility. An unshakable resilience. Setbacks become less about personal failure and more about useful feedback for your next iteration. This shift isn't about becoming a detached calculator of odds. It's about becoming a more engaged, more aware participant in the unpredictable dance of life. It's about cultivating a quiet confidence that stems not from knowing precisely what will happen, but from knowing how to gracefully navigate whatever might happen. It's the wisdom of understanding that life's greatest rewards often lie beyond the illusion of certainty, in the vibrant, ever-shifting realm of probabilities. Exercise. Create a weekly probability journal. To solidify these practices, commit to a weekly probability journal. This isn't a massive undertaking, but a focused discipline. Monday morning scan. At the start of your week, identify 2-3 key decisions or events you anticipate. These could be small, e.g., will I finish that report by Wednesday? Or slightly larger, e.g., what's the likelihood that the team meeting will result in a clear action plan? Initial estimate. For each, jot down your initial probability estimate, e.g., 75% chance of finishing the report. Briefly note why you believe that, what evidence or intuition is informing your estimate. Midweek check-in, optional. If new information arises, make a quick note and adjust your probability if needed. End-of-week review. On Friday, revisit each entry. What actually happened? Did your outcome match your probability? What new data did you gain? How would you adjust your estimation process for next time? This simple, structured reflection will rapidly accelerate your journey toward an internalized probabilistic mindset, turning abstract concepts into tangible, actionable insights. Conclusion. Building a probabilistic mindset is a lifelong endeavor, a continuous refinement of how you perceive and interact with the world. It is a path marked by curiosity, humility, and an unwavering commitment to learning from every twist and turn. By embracing daily practices like journaling, seeking feedback, and reframing setbacks as valuable data, you transform yourself from a rigid predictor into a flexible, resilient navigator. You come to understand that perfect foresight is an illusion, but wise adaptation is a potent reality. The world outside will continue its unpredictable dance, but your inner landscape will become a sanctuary of calm and clarity. You will find freedom in the maybe, peace in the uncertainty, and strength in the continuous process of learning and evolving. This is the art of building a probabilistic mindset, not conquering the unknown, but befriending it, and in doing so, unlocking a life of profound adaptability and authentic fulfillment. Chapter 11. Navigating a probabilistic world. The world often feels like a ship tossed on an unpredictable sea. From the whisper of a distant economic tremor to the roar of technological revolution, we are constantly confronted by forces that defy simple answers. The human mind, in its earnest desire for stability, frequently seeks to anchor itself to absolutes, clinging to the illusion of certainty where none exists. Yet, to truly thrive in our interconnected and rapidly evolving age, we must cast off these rigid moorings and learn to navigate the currents of probability. This chapter is your guide to doing just that, equipping you to move with wisdom and foresight through a world defined by its inherent complexity. The unfolding tapestry of global issues. Probabilistic thinking is not merely a personal tool. It is a vital lens through which to understand and engage with the grand narratives shaping our planet. Consider the immense challenges of our time: climate change, geopolitical shifts, the relentless march of technological innovation. None of these unfold with predetermined outcomes. Instead, they are vast, intricate systems where myriad variables interact, creating a spectrum of potential futures, each with its own likelihood. Take the looming shadow of climate change. For decades, many viewed this issue through a binary lens. Either it was a hoax or it was an undeniable catastrophe. This black and white thinking prevented meaningful action. The probabilistic thinker, however, approaches climate change not as a fixed doom, but as a complex system with varying degrees of risk. They understand that while the exact timing and severity of impacts are uncertain, the likelihood of significant disruption is overwhelmingly high, based on scientific models, historical data, and observable trends. This mindset compels a different kind of action, not a frantic scramble for absolute solutions, but a calculated effort to mitigate the most probable risks, reducing emissions, while simultaneously adapting to the most probable changes, building resilient infrastructure, developing new agricultural methods. It's about placing bets on a range of plausible futures, acknowledging that perfection is unattainable, but prudent preparation is always possible. Or observe the swirling currents of geopolitical power. Nations, alliances, and economic blocs shift and evolve with an almost organic unpredictability. A binary thinker might see global relations as a simple game of friends versus foes, or stability versus chaos. But the probabilistic mind recognizes the intricate web of competing interests, historical grievances, and contingent events that shape international affairs. For instance, in the early 2000s, many policymakers viewed the rise of China through a singular lens, either as an inevitable, benevolent partner or an unyielding adversary. A more probabilistic perspective might have estimated the varying likelihoods of economic cooperation, strategic competition, or direct confrontation, based on China's internal dynamics, its resource needs, and the reactions of other global powers. This nuanced view would lead to policies that are adaptive, allowing for engagement where probabilities favor mutual benefit, and strategic caution where risks are higher. It's about playing the long game, not with unwavering certainty, but with an intelligent estimation of the unfolding possibilities. Then there is the dizzying pace of technological change. From artificial intelligence to biotechnology, new innovations promise to reshape every facet of human existence. The binary traps here are obvious: boundless utopia or dystopian collapse. Yet, history teaches us that new technologies rarely deliver on either extreme. Their impact is probabilistic, a distribution of potential outcomes shaped by human choices, regulatory frameworks, and societal adoption. Consider the Internet itself. In its infancy, some predicted it would usher in an era of pure enlightenment, while others foresaw only chaos and depravity. The reality, as any probabilistic thinker would have surmised, lies somewhere in the vast middle, a powerful tool capable of incredible good and profound harm, its ultimate trajectory dependent on a multitude of interacting factors and probabilities. Understanding this allows us to engage with technology not with naive optimism or crippling fear, but with a clear-eyed assessment of its likely benefits and risks, allowing us to steer its development towards more favorable probabilities. The art of shared understanding, communicating probabilities. In a world defined by collective challenges, our ability to communicate effectively about uncertainty is paramount. If we cannot articulate the likelihood of an outcome, we remain trapped in the realm of opinion and dogma. Collaborating with others demands a shared language of maybe, a way to express degrees of confidence, acknowledge assumptions, and pool insights without succumbing to the tyranny of absolute statements. Consider the challenge of securing a shared future, as exemplified by the city of Rotterdam. Situated below sea level, This Dutch port city has faced the existential threat of rising waters for centuries. Rather than operating under the binary assumption of either complete safety or inevitable inundation, Rotterdam's planners embraced probabilistic thinking. They did not know exactly how much sea levels would rise or when the next superstorm would hit. Instead, they communicated probabilities. There was a high likelihood of increased flood risk over the next 50 years, a moderate likelihood of more extreme weather events, and a lower, but still significant chance of truly catastrophic breaches. This probabilistic language allowed diverse stakeholders, engineers, politicians, citizens, businesses, to unite around a common understanding of risk. They collectively built adaptive defenses, innovative floating architecture, multi-purpose dikes that also serve as public parks, and flexible water management systems. This was not a plan for a certain future, but a resilient strategy built on the best available estimates of an uncertain one, enabling a community to act decisively without waiting for the impossible luxury of perfect foresight. Communicating probabilities effectively means using clear language, avoid jargon. Instead of high confidence interval, say very likely. Translate percentages into everyday terms that resonate with people's experience. Stating assumptions. Every probability estimate rests on assumptions. Be transparent about them. Given current trends, there's a 70% chance of X, assuming Y remains constant. Focusing on implications. It's not just about the number, it's about what the likelihood means for action. There's a 60% chance of this project succeeding, which means we should allocate these resources and have a contingency plan for the other 40%. Encouraging open dialogue. Probabilities are not dogmas. Invite others to share their own estimates and the evidence supporting them. This collaborative calibration strengthens collective understanding and resilience. The wise humility of prediction. To navigate a probabilistic world effectively, we must also cultivate a profound sense of humility. The human mind is wired to seek patterns and predict the future, a necessary evolutionary trait. However, this wiring can also lead to hubris, a belief that our predictions are more accurate or certain than they truly are. Staying humble means recognizing the inherent limits of our foresight, no matter how sophisticated our models or how sharp our intuition. The history of forecasting is littered with confident predictions that fell spectacularly short. In the late 19th century, many prominent scientists believed physics was a closed book, with nothing significant left to discover. Within decades, Einstein's relativity and quantum mechanics shattered these certainties, revolutionizing our understanding of the universe. Their overconfidence stemmed from a deterministic view of knowledge. A probabilistic mindset acknowledges that even the most robust models are approximations of reality, always subject to new information and unforeseen variables. This humility is not a weakness, but a profound strength. It fosters intellectual curiosity, encouraging us to perpetually seek new data, revise our mental models, and remain adaptable. When we recognize that our predictions are merely estimates, we are less likely to be blindsided by unexpected outcomes. Instead, we learn to treat failure not as a personal indictment, but as valuable data, a signal that our prior probabilities need updating. This iterative process of prediction, action, observation, and revision is the hallmark of true wisdom in an uncertain world. Case study: a community's probabilistic plan for economic uncertainty. Imagine the small fishing town of Port Resilience, heavily reliant on a single industry. For years, the town operated under the assumption that the fishing industry would always provide. Then, environmental changes and shifting market demands introduced a deep economic uncertainty. The town leaders, rather than clinging to a dying certainty or falling into despair, adopted a probabilistic approach. They brought together local economists, environmental scientists, and community members. They didn't ask, "Will the fishing industry collapse?" but rather, What is the likelihood of various economic scenarios over the next decade, and what would their impact be? Their analysis yielded a spectrum of possibilities. High probability, 70%. The fishing industry would gradually decline but not vanish entirely, requiring diversification. Medium probability, 20%. A more significant, faster decline due to unforeseen environmental shifts or market forces. Low probability, 10%. A surprising resurgence, perhaps due to new sustainable practices or niche markets. Based on these probabilities, they didn't invest all their hopes in a single grand plan. Instead, they developed a portfolio of initiatives. Immediate action, high probability focus. Investment in retraining programs for fishermen, fostering small tourism businesses, and supporting local artisan crafts. These were high-probability bets for gradual diversification. Contingency plans, medium probability focus. Identified alternative industries, e.g., aquaculture, renewable energy infrastructure, that could be scaled up quickly if the decline accelerated. Land was rezoned, and partnerships with external companies were explored, ready to be activated. Monitoring all probabilities. Established a committee to continuously monitor ecological data, market trends, and economic indicators, updating their probability estimates regularly. This probabilistic strategy allowed port resilience to adapt incrementally, avoiding sudden shocks. When the fishing industry did indeed decline, the community was prepared, not just with one solution, but with a range of options, each based on a careful assessment of likelihood. They experienced hardship but not collapse because they had embraced the art of maybe. Exercise, analyzing a current event. To cultivate your probabilistic lens on the world, choose a current event that feels complex and uncertain. This could be a national election, a new technological breakthrough, or a significant economic trend. Identify the core uncertainty. What is the main question or outcome that is currently uncertain? E.g., will interest rates rise by more than 0.5% this quarter? Brainstorm multiple outcomes. Instead of a simple yes or no, list at least 3 distinct possible outcomes. E.g., rise by 0.25%, rise by 0.5%, remain unchanged, decrease. Assign probabilities roughly. For each outcome, assign a rough percentage likelihood, summing to 100%. Don't aim for precision, but let your intuition, informed by any news or data you've seen, guide you. List supporting evidence. Briefly note why you assign those probabilities. What information, trends, or expert opinions support your estimates? Discuss with a friend. Share your analysis with a friend or colleague. Ask them their own probabilities and the evidence they considered. Listen actively for new perspectives that might challenge or refine your own estimates. This exercise transforms complex global issues from overwhelming certainties or paralyzing unknowns into manageable probabilities, allowing you to engage with the world with greater clarity and a deeper, more adaptable understanding. The probabilistic path forward. Navigating a probabilistic world demands a shift from rigid certainty to adaptive understanding. It asks us to see the global tapestry not as a fixed design, but as an ever-weaving creation where patterns emerge from countless individual threads. By applying probabilistic thinking to global issues, communicating uncertainty with clarity, and embracing a wise humility in our predictions, we become not mere observers, but active, intelligent participants in shaping the future. The next chapter will lead you to the final horizon, showing how this mindset, internalized and applied, can lead to a truly fulfilling life, a long game played with wisdom, resilience, and profound peace of mind. Chapter 12. The Long Game, Probabilistic Thinking for a Fulfilling Life. We often chase an elusive perfection, a singular, guaranteed outcome for our lives, only to find ourselves disappointed by the unpredictable nature of existence. The truly fulfilling life is not about eliminating uncertainty, but about learning to move gracefully within it, to understand that our deepest aspirations are not fixed destinations, but fluid landscapes of likelihood. This final journey into probabilistic thinking will reveal how to play the long game of life, setting goals not as rigid demands, but as flexible aspirations, balancing immediate joys with future harvests, and cultivating a profound sense of peace amidst the swirling currents of the unknown. Setting probabilistic goals, embracing ranges of success. For too long, we have been conditioned to set rigid goals. I will earn X amount by this age, or I will achieve Y by this date. While admirable in their ambition, these absolute targets often become crucibles of despair when life, as it always does, deviates from the script. Probabilistic thinking invites a more liberating approach, setting goals as ranges of success, understanding that achievement is a spectrum, not a single point. Imagine a sailor charting a course. They do not aim for a precise, infinitesimal spot on the horizon, but for a broad quadrant, knowing that winds, currents, and unforeseen weather will necessitate constant adjustments. Their success is not reaching an exact coordinate, but arriving safely and effectively within a desirable zone. In the same vein, your life goals ought to be defined by a range of probable outcomes. Consider your career. Instead of a fixed income target, frame it as, I aim to earn between $70,000 and $100,000 within the next 3 years, with a 60% likelihood of reaching the higher end if I consistently pursue professional development and networking opportunities. This is not a concession to mediocrity. It is an intelligent acknowledgement of reality. It forces you to consider the variables, both within your control and outside it, and to strategize accordingly. This mindset shifts your focus from the anxiety of hitting a bullseye to the wisdom of consistently making high-probability moves. When you define success as a range, unexpected detours do not derail you. They simply become data points that inform your next adjustment. You learn to see that even landing in the lower end of your desired range is still a form of success, far removed from the binary, succeed or fail, trap that often leads to burnout and self-condemnation. It is the wisdom of the farmer who, while hopping for a bountiful harvest, prepares for a lean year, understanding that true prosperity lies in resilient cultivation, not in the illusion of guaranteed yield. Balancing short-term and long-term probabilities. Life presents a constant tension between immediate gratification and future rewards. The call of the present is often loud, tempting us with instant pleasures, yet the silent probability of future consequence looms large. Probabilistic thinking offers a compass to navigate this delicate balance, enabling us to weigh the likely outcomes of our choices across different time horizons. Every decision carries an inherent set of probabilities, both near and far. Choosing to indulge in excessive spending today might bring fleeting joy, but it also carries a high probability of long-term financial strain. Conversely, consistent, small investments might seem insignificant in the short run, but their long-term probability of substantial growth is undeniable. The wise individual understands that these probabilities compound over time, shaping not just isolated outcomes, but the very trajectory of their life. Consider the art of investing, not just money, but time and energy. A young professional might receive an offer for a high-paying, but creatively stifling job. The short-term probability of financial comfort is high. However, a lower-paying role with significant learning opportunities might carry a higher long-term probability of career fulfillment and greater earning potential down the line. To choose wisely, one must assign probabilities not just to the immediate benefits, but to the ripple effects that extend far into the future. It is about understanding the odds of a fulfilling tomorrow, even if it requires a calculated sacrifice today. This balancing act demands a certain maturity, a willingness to delay immediate gratification for a higher, albeit less certain, future reward. It is not about asceticism, but about strategic foresight. You still enjoy the present, but you do so with an awareness of its probable impact on your future self. You might choose to save a portion of your income, not out of rigid discipline, but because you understand the high probability of financial freedom it offers, a future reward far more valuable than any fleeting purchase. This continuous calibration of short-term desires against long-term probabilities forms the bedrock of a life well lived. The emotional benefits: reduced regret, increased adaptability, and greater peace of mind. Perhaps the most profound transformation offered by probabilistic thinking lies in its emotional dividends. In a world obsessed with certainty and flawless outcomes, the embrace of maybe brings an unparalleled sense of liberation, reduced regret, increased adaptability, and a deeper, abiding peace of mind. Regret often stems from the illusion that we could have known with absolute certainty what would happen. When an outcome differs from our singular expectation, we are left grappling with if only. But when you approach decisions probabilistically, you acknowledge from the outset that multiple outcomes are possible. You make the best choice based on the highest probabilities, understanding that even the most likely scenario is not guaranteed. When an unexpected result occurs, it is not a failure of foresight, but simply one of the less probable realities unfolding. This perspective dissolves the sting of regret, replacing it with the calm acceptance that you acted with the best information available at the time. You gain peace from knowing you played the odds intelligently, regardless of how the dice landed. This acceptance of uncertainty inherently fosters adaptability. If your plans are built on the assumption of a single, certain outcome, any deviation can feel like a catastrophe. But if you've already considered a range of possibilities and their likelihoods, you are mentally prepared to pivot. An unexpected career setback becomes not an insurmountable wall, but a less likely scenario that you had already considered, prompting you to activate a contingency plan. This mental flexibility allows you to flow with life's currents rather than being broken by them. You become like water, shaping yourself to the vessel, finding your path around obstacles, always moving forward. Ultimately, probabilistic thinking cultivates a deep peace of mind. It frees you from the exhausting pursuit of perfect control. You recognize that while you cannot control every outcome, you can control your actions, your estimates, and your responses. This realization shifts your focus from external uncertainty to internal mastery. You gain a quiet confidence that transcends circumstance, understanding that true security comes not from knowing what will happen, but from knowing how to skillfully navigate whatever might happen. You are no longer tossed about by the whims of fate, but stand grounded, ready to embrace the inherent maybe of existence with clarity and courage. The transformation of Javier. Javier, a freelance graphic designer living in Mexico City, once lived in the shadow of absolute expectations. His life was a series of rigid goals, a fixed income, a perfect relationship, and an ideal body. Any deviation from these absolutes sent him spiraling into anxiety and self-doubt. He avoided commitment in relationships, fearing the wrong choice, and his financial goals often felt like a tightrope walk without a net. Inspired by a book on decision-making, Javier began to experiment with probabilistic thinking, slowly, tentatively, like learning a new language. He started with his career. Instead of a rigid six-figure income goal, he set a range, earning between $40,000 and $60,000 annually within 2 years, giving himself a 70% chance of hitting at least $40,000 if he consistently marketed his services and built his portfolio. He listed factors he could control, like networking and skill development, and those he couldn't, like client budgets or market trends. When a major client unexpectedly dropped him, he didn't spiral into regret. He recognized it as a 30% probability event he had implicitly accounted for, adjusted his marketing strategy, and within months, landed 2 new clients, steadying his income. In his personal life, Javier applied the same logic. He had previously avoided deep connections, terrified of making the wrong choice. Now he approached dating with a new lens, a 60% chance a new relationship might last a year, and a 20% chance it could even lead to marriage. This mindset wasn't cynical, it was liberating. Each date became an experiment, a gathering of new data, not a make-or-break verdict on his worth. This reduced his fear of rejection and allowed him to be more authentic. By 2018, Javier was in a stable, fulfilling relationship, not because he found the one with absolute certainty, but because he embraced the probabilities and uncertainties inherent in human connection. His anxiety, a constant companion, also began to recede. He estimated a 50% chance that daily meditation would help, based on research and the experiences of others. After a month, he noticed a slight improvement, a 40% reduction in anxious thoughts. He iterated, adding exercise, which boosted the effect to a 70% overall reduction. By 2020, his anxiety was manageable, not entirely gone, a realistic outcome he had come to anticipate. Javier's life wasn't suddenly perfect. He earned $55,000 a year, lived with a partner he loved, and felt a profound sense of calm he hadn't known before. Probabilistic thinking hadn't eliminated uncertainty from his life. It had given him a powerful framework to navigate it. His existence, once a rigid path fraught with fear, became a series of informed bets, each building on the last, compounding into a richer, more fulfilling life. Exercise your probabilistic mission statement. To truly internalize probabilistic thinking and make it a guiding force in your life, take a moment to craft your own personal mission statement that incorporates its principles. This is not about rigid rules or unattainable ideals, but a living document that guides your approach to all of life's challenges and opportunities. Here, how to begin. Reflect on your values. What truly matters to you? Write down 3 core values that define who you want to be and what you want to achieve. Perhaps it's growth, connection, creativity, resilience, or impact. Embrace uncertainty. Acknowledge that your path will be filled with twists, turns, and unexpected detours. Commit to seeing uncertainty not as a threat to be avoided, but as a fertile ground for learning and adaptation. How will you respond when things don't go as planned? Focus on ranges. Promise yourself to set goals not as fixed targets, but as ranges of possibility. How will you define success when it comes to your career, relationships, health, or personal development? For instance, instead of "I will write a bestseller," consider, "I will write a book that reaches between 10,000 and 50,000 readers, with a high probability of finding an audience if I consistently engage with my readers." Commit to iteration and learning. How will you continuously refine your approach based on new evidence? Incorporate the idea of treating setbacks as data points, not failures. Formulate your statement. Combine these reflections into a concise, powerful mission statement. Let it be a beacon that reminds you to approach every challenge with curiosity, estimate likelihoods, and adapt as you learn and grow. For example, my mission is to approach challenges with an open mind, estimating likelihoods and adapting my course as new evidence emerges. I will pursue growth, not perfection, by setting goals as ranges of possibility and celebrating progress within those bounds. I choose courage over certainty, finding peace in the continuous dance of learning and becoming. Write this statement down. Place it somewhere you'll see it daily. Let it be a constant reminder that the most fulfilling life is not lived in the pursuit of rigid absolutes, but in the graceful navigation of probabilities. Conclusion: the art of maybe. We began this journey by challenging the ingrained human craving for certainty, and we conclude it by recognizing that true power lies in embracing the inherent maybe of existence. Life is not a predictable equation. It is a complex, beautiful, and ever-unfolding story, where every outcome exists as a spectrum of probabilities. The art of maybe is not about mastering prediction, for that is impossible. It is about mastering your response to the unpredictable. It is about cultivating a mind that sees beyond false dichotomies, a spirit that welcomes new evidence, and a heart that finds peace in the ebb and flow of uncertainty. By thinking probabilistically, you gain not just better decisions but a richer, more resilient life. You move from rigid expectation to flexible adaptation, from the sting of regret to the calm of informed action, from paralyzing fear to empowered peace. You become an active participant in the great game of life, not a passive observer, understanding that while you cannot control every card you are dealt, you can always play your hand with wisdom and grace. May your journey be filled with curious estimations, courageous adaptations, and the profound peace that comes from truly living the art of maybe.